Good morning, good morning, good morning. Man, I am excited to do this live stream this morning. I have nothing but good things to report, good vibes. Let's get started. If you guys have any real estate questions at all, go ahead and post them in the chat and I will happily answer them. I got an email after the last live stream from Zion, and he's asking for a little bit of advice. He says he's a 21-year-old college student in San Antonio, Texas. And let's see here. He says that his main focus will be rental property investing after he gets out of college. And let's see here. He says that he's unsure on what his realistic expectations should be. I'm unsure on what is realistic for my first rental property. Let me just read this. Questions: is a 30-year conventional loan reasonable for a multifamily property, or should I search for other forms of financing? The second question is, should I even be searching for multifamily properties? And then the third one is, since I'm considered a first-time home buyer with a high credit score but relatively short credit history, are the properties below realistic? Let's see. Well, he sent some properties on LoopNet. Let me just see. I'm going to click on one of these bad boys and hopefully a virus doesn't take my computer down. Man, San Antonio must be 2 units, a duplex for $324,000. Wow. Pretty bananas. A 4-unit apartment building at $600,000 at a 7.1% cap rate. Oof, out of my league. We are under contract on a package of 20 properties for $800,000. So Dayton is a wee bit different than San Antonio, Texas. I guess this is new construction, though. Man. Okay, so let me just go ahead and answer these questions rather than looking at these very high-priced multifamily units. But hey, hopefully the pay in San Antonio is, comparable to the price of that 4-unit. That's pretty crazy. All right, so a 30-year conventional loan reasonable for multifamily property? Yes. So if you are looking to be an owner-occupant, then you most certainly should look for 30-year financing, hopefully a Fannie Freddie loan. So that way you don't have to put much money down, anywhere from 3.5% to 5%, and you have it amortized over 30 years. So that should be nice and easy. And then as long as the units are from 1 unit, which would be like a single family home, up to 4. So all the things that you sent me on this email, good to go. 1 to 4 units qualify. Now, if it's 5 units or more, then you can no longer use a Fannie or Freddie loan, like a conventional 30-year low interest loan. You're going to have to start looking at alternative options there. And then your second question, should I even be searching for multifamilies? I mean, it's up to you. I definitely think that that's the way to go, as young as you are, being 21 and all. I think house hacking is probably one of the most wise things that you can do, but that could take a couple different forms. I did a video on it, and I think you can either buy a single family home and rent out the rooms to good friends. That's what I did when I was 23. I kind of house hacked on accident. I think the coolest thing that you could do is buy a 4-unit, live in one of the units, and rent out the others. Now, if you're really cool, what I think you should do is buy a 4-unit, live in one of the units, and also rent out the other rooms in the unit that you live in to your friends. I think that is the biggest power play that you could possibly do. So other than that, I mean, I think it's a great way to get started. I think it'd be easy to manage, even if you are in college or working full time. Since you also live there, it'll be very easy for your other residents to reach out to you if they need anything. And all the things that you sent me are very much so new builds. So the maintenance costs should be relatively low. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. And then your credit score, I mean, you're fine, especially right now. I mean, as long as you haven't tanked it doing something silly. If you're in the 600s, 680, I think, is most banks. It's either 640 or 680 that make banks kind of question you a little bit. So I think it's 640. I want to say, as long as you're above 640, you're bankable. 680 and up is pretty solid. So you're probably good. Good morning. Happy to see you back. Texas is crazy hot right now. I'm seeing that. I'm happy that I'm not in that market. Tolu, I'm not sure if she's on here, but she sent me an email as well talking about how hot it is. She just offered on a property that is $21,000. She offered $21,000 over asking and still didn't win. That's pretty bananas, if you ask me. Let's see here. This is fun. You guys send me a lot of good emails. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let me put my email up just in case you guys want to send me something. Let's see. So one person asked, should I look for distressed properties and try to get seller finance or subject to financing? Sure. I think that's a great way to start. I think distressed properties is probably where you have the ability to make the most amount of equity. But I mean, if you're buying a distressed property and you're not sure what you're looking at, I mean, that's also the most risky, right? Because you could accidentally, if your numbers aren't ran appropriately, if you overlook something that needs to be fixed, then you could potentially be underwater if you don't budget for the repairs appropriately. But that's okay. I mean, you live and you learn. If you put your 30-year goggles on and look at it long term, so long as you're not grossly negligent in real estate, you will likely end up being okay. But yeah, I was reminded by a good friend of mine that I say that often this morning. He responded that way in one of my comments. So, hey, it must be true. Let's see here. Ask the bank if they will finance a BRRRR property and use hard money to buy and renovate it and then refinance through a bank once it's rented. Sure, you can do that, but you wouldn't need to ask the bank for their permission to do that prior to. So long as you renovate the property and run your numbers right, banks will likely lend on it. Let's see here. The issues I foresee with that are a seasoning period may cause extra holding fees. Also, would they refinance that if they aren't willing to finance a traditional rental property? I don't know much at all about the financing side of things, and I think that'll be the biggest hurdle for acquiring more rental properties, aside from finding good deals. Yep. I think I might say this every week. Let's see here. Just as feverishly or fervently as I look for rental properties, my brother is down in Florida constantly calling on banks and lenders trying to find people that want to lend to us. So yeah, I think deal flow, contractors, and financing are the three biggest hurdles in real estate investing. If you can have those down, then you just have to make sure that you don't drop the ball on the tenant side of things or the resident and managing side. But so long as you have good deal flow, if you have good contractors, and if you have a couple of good banks behind you, then growth will not be your issue. Now you just have to keep charging ahead on those fronts and constantly look behind you, make sure that you are doing everything that you need to on the property management and the residential side too. Man, good questions. Let's see here. I'm gonna read one more email. Oh, somebody from Ohio in Cleveland, and he just bought his first home and he's itching to buy more. Let's see here. He turned 28. And he just finished reading the 24 things that helped me achieve $1 million net worth by 30. Nice. He just went to his first sheriff auction. This is a really good email. I'm reaching out not only to thank you, but I would also like to make a connection with someone who is skilled in this industry. I'm taking your advice and forgetting everything I know and seeking mentors and those much wiser than I to associate with. Did I ever say forget everything you know? That's a funny statement. I came across a gentleman who approached me at the sheriff auction who seemed nice and offered to help out, but after looking him up on Google, he ended up being a repeat criminal who has been arrested for drug trafficking out of hotels he owned and sued by the EPA for dumping waste on his properties. Of course he wants to help. He's looking for his next victim. I'd love to connect if you ever have time. Sure, I understand. Let's see here. Oh, well, hey, that was a success email. There was no questions in there. That's fun. Awesome. All right, let's look up your comments. Today is my birthday. Happy birthday, Jael. That's really cool. Thank you for spending your birthday on this live stream. Let's see, is there anything fun that I could do for you for your birthday inside the confines of this live stream? Are you looking at a deal? We can analyze a deal for you live if you've got something in the pipeline that you want to look at. That would be fun, right? I normally don't like doing that, but it's your birthday. So that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. Besides doing a little jiggy or dance, I will not do. Sorry. No jiggies here. Good morning. Good morning, Ed Harvey. Hey, I'm happy to see you on here. You commented and said that you're not sure your notifications are coming through. So this morning they did, or you set an alarm. So thanks for being here. Yeah, happy birthday. Happy new light. I don't know what that means, but you say it. You said it the past few weeks. Happy new light. Is it just because it's a new day? What do you think about buying properties with your credit card cash advance? I think you should do it. I think you should do it, especially if you got some sort of promotional zero interest. So, I say that. I said yes immediately. The times that we have purchased properties with credit cards, we have a local credit union here. They give us a credit card at 8.5% interest, which is really low for a credit card. I'm not so sure. Let's see here. I mean, even if your credit card would be no different than like a hard money loan just made by yourself, right? So long as you weren't buying and holding it long term, so long as you on the credit card, so long as you ran your numbers appropriately, so long as you are confident in your exit strategies, I don't really see any downside, especially if you're able to get the property at a really good discount. So if you're able to buy it at like 60 or 70% of the ARV, including the repairs, then you've got a lot of equity immediately, and you didn't have to go through a hard money lender or any sort of application or approval process prior to purchasing the property. So if your limit is large enough to purchase a property, you have a clear exit strategy, your numbers are right, then yes, by all means, you should utilize your credit cards or any lines of credit or any money available to you to purchase rental properties. I agree with that. Now, of course, if you aren't too responsible with credit cards, or you're not clear on your exit strategy, or you didn't run your numbers diligently, then it's a real recipe for disaster. But if everything is very well calculated, very well thought out, very well planned out, then I don't think there's much of a risk in buying a property with your credit card, even though it's not something that people really talk about very often. Just keep this up. It's been really helpful. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I sure will. I'm trying to read your little logo. I can't read it though. I see stars and call for. I don't know. All right, let's see. Man, you guys are full of positive vibes this morning too, but no questions, huh? Other than this one. I guess we could talk about this one a little bit more. We've got 9 people on here, 15 minutes in. That makes me feel pretty good. I think the smallest class that I went to in college was about 9 people. So we've already technically got a full classroom of people here. So let's talk about any sort of real estate things that you want to. Here's a good one. Went to a tax lien sale. Taxes owed on property was $1,000, but a gentleman offered $150,000. No one else nodded. No joke. That guy, he skipped 149 things. Why would he bid that? What is that strategy? Thanks. Well, without knowing the deal. Okay, so let's see. If I were this fella and I was a logical, rational man, which I don't know about this gentleman, then let's see here. If the opening bid was $1,000, then if he did his homework, if he went out, looked at this property, peeked in the windows. I know some guys even break into properties. I'm not suggesting you do that. I've never done that. I don't think that's a good idea because it's technically trespassing and all. And I do my absolute best to be overly upright and never break the law because that's scary. I'm too paranoid to live on the wrong side, wrong side of the law. I would say that he probably did his homework. He probably knows exactly what the property's worth. He probably knows exactly what the property needs, and he knows exactly what the after repair value is. So he just wanted to come in, not beat around the bush, open up the bidding with something that he was comfortable paying, that he knew there was still a lot of meat on the bone, and do that. Or this fella was a attorney or representative of the bank or the person foreclosing. No, it's a tax foreclosure. So maybe he just had a vested interest in it. Maybe I guess technically it could have been a lender. I know my knowledge here is limited because Ohio, we don't have tax lien sales. I mean, we have them, but there's only like 2 companies that are allowed to purchase them. Tax Ease and some other company. Anyway, I don't know much about it. I know in normal foreclosures, like let's say a bank is owed $150,000 on that property, a representative from the bank, generally an attorney, will show up and bid it to the amount owed. That way the bank can not lose any of their interest in the property. So that's a possibility. But hey, at this point, it's all speculation. Cosmic Wisdom depends on the after repair value of the house and the current condition. You got it, Cosmic Wisdom. Man, you are speedy. And you answered that a lot faster than I did. But hey, I love going on rants and rambling. That's why you got to show up, right? 13 people in the house. I'm ready to answer some questions. Getting real excited. And I've got a few things to do for the insurance agency today, a few things to do for the rental properties. But other than that, my wife and kids are out of town, so my schedule is extraordinarily flexible today. So as many questions as you guys want to throw at me, here we go. Someone explained he backed by bank. I'm in Atlanta as well. Yeah, that makes sense. Sourcing Guru. Hey, Ryan, I'm new to real estate investing and just went to my first auction to watch. I'm hooked. How do you determine market value of a property to make an informed decision about how high to bid? Great question. So foreclosures are difficult. I use PropStream to run comps. And actually, I used PropStream to run comps for this package of 20 properties that we were closing on next week. And the appraisals came back and I was within, now get this, on 20 doors, I was within $5,000 of what the appraisals actually came back to be. So I am a huge fan of PropStream for running comps. I think if nothing else, the $100 per month or $97 per month, whatever it is for PropStream, is well worth it just for the ability to run your own comps and print out some pretty cool looking reports that show the after repair value of a property. So once you determine the after repair value, either utilizing PropStream and pulling comps or asking a realtor for comps, I would then visit the property, make sure that you know as much about this property as you can. This is where foreclosures are tricky because you don't have access to the interior of the property, so you really don't know what it needs on the inside. I would go ahead probably with the assumption that it needs everything and budget appropriately. So, I mean, in a perfect world, your purchase price plus your repair costs do not exceed 70% of the after repair value. That's a good bookmark. Obviously, you can tighten that up if you need to. You can, if you're comfortable, if you really want the property and you're comfortable going like 85% of the after repair value, that's on you. But just know that the tighter that number gets, and the higher percentage you go, the less room there is for error. So then if you get inside the property and you realize that it needs a lot more than you expected, it's kind of on you, and you kind of have to shoulder those costs. So you're not necessarily setting yourself up for success, but if it's a competitive market, if there are a lot of other bidders, you just have to determine, hey, do you want to be patient and wait for a better deal, or do you want this deal to go ahead and get started? Totally up to you. 16 people. I feel great. Thank you all 16 of you. Thank you for being on here. Okay, you like rambling. Yes, I do. That's what we're all here for. What is the best process in finding tenants? Also, what are some key items to look for insurance on the property? Wow, Tech J. Let's see here. What's the best process for finding tenants? We use Appfolio, and we post the property out on Appfolio, and Appfolio pushes it out to like 40 different places on the internet. Let me just, I think I could pull this up pretty quickly to figure out where Appfolio posts it. But I mean, at this point, so long as it's competitively priced, we can get a resident in there pretty quickly. Man, two-factor authentication really slows me down sometimes. I guess it protects me. 924. Let's see. Trying to find it. I think I might be doing too many things at this time. Where's your property listed? Okay, so here are all the websites that it is posted out on. There's a lot of them. I think it's actually 40. Show Me the Rent, Abodo, Apartment Love, Classified Ads, Dwellsy, Hunt, Key Lasso, Realtor, RentalSource.com, Rentler, ULoop, Zumper. We get a lot of leads from Zumper. I've never heard of it. ZUMPER, Apartment List, Apartments.com, Atlas, Call It Home, collegehouse.com, Every Rent, FRBO, FRBO, never heard of that. Homes.com, Hot Pads, Lovely, Pad Mapper, RadPad, Real Rentals, Rent College Pads, Rent Focus, Rent Hop, Rent Lingo, Trentals, TRINTALS, Trovit, Trulia, Ucribs, University Parent, USA Today College, Walk Score, Zillow, Rentals.com, Rental Ads, Condo.com, Houses321.com, Rent.com, and Apartment Guide. That's where they're rented. I mean, that's where when we post a property via Appfolio, that is all of the websites that Appfolio pushes it out to. Pretty thorough, pretty impressive. I like it a lot. All right, so that's how I do it. I mean, Appfolio does, I would say, 90% of the work. All I do is come up with a clever description, and it's more or less of a template. I came up with a clever description once, and then post pictures to Appfolio, and then hit post to internet, and post to website. And then our rental qualifications are 3 times. We want your monthly income to be 3 times the market rent. No felonies, no misdemeanors in the past 5 years. We don't monitor the credit score, no evictions, and that might be it. Yeah. Now, yeah, that's about it. And then key items to look for insurance. I would not mess with actual cash value at all. So I would not accept an actual cash value policy. Now, there are situations where you might have to accept an actual cash value policy if the property is in pretty bad condition. Then you might not qualify for replacement cost. And if you try to push your poor quality property through replacement cost, then you're likely going to get canceled a lot, which would probably be pretty frustrating for you. So definitely do that. And then let's see here, what else? I mean, that's about it. Otherwise, you just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the coverage A, which is the dwelling amount. And then coverage D, the loss of use or loss of rent. So if a kitchen fire happens and you miss out on like a month or 2 months rent, sometimes that's covered in insurance. You'd want to look for that. Other than that, I think one of the biggest things is to make sure that your residents have renter's insurance, and that you are listed as an additional interest on their rental insurance policy. So in theory, and of course, you always want to view the best in people, but if you are not listed as an additional interest, if you're an additional interest, that means you receive notifications each time a change happens to the policy, to include a notice of cancellation or the actual cancellation of the policy. So in theory, what somebody could do is, if you require renter's insurance, they could pay for 1 month and then never pay for it again. They could show you the declaration pages up front and then never make any more payments on it. So then 3 months later, they don't have any sort of renter's insurance. And then if they damage your property, it'll come out of your pocket, not theirs, because they don't have insurance. Sure, the insurance company can try to subrogate to make them pay for whatever happens if they're negligent, but at the end of the day, there's likely no recourse. How's the housing inventory going in Dayton? Do you see an increase, or are buyers buying them up as soon as they're listed? I think most markets right now are very tight, but there are still deals out there. You might just have to get a little bit more creative, look for some more off-market stuff, go deeper with some wholesalers, really buddy up to realtors to try to get their pocket listings. So as soon as they're notified of a property, they might reach out to you prior to putting it on the market. That's the kind of stuff you might want to be doing if the inventory is low. So just remember, the market, quote unquote, the MLS, is just one way of getting deals. It is not something that you should rely on. And I just definitely want to point out that, and this is, I'm going to say this often each time this kind of is said on the channel, because it's really easy to say like the inventory is low, there's no deals out there, but that's not true. I think in all markets, in all times, there are other real estate investors out there doing deals, making money. So the real question is, how do you become one of those people making the deals and making the money? And do your best to never make any excuses. Now, Cosmic Wisdom, I know that you're not saying that right now, but thank you, man. Thank you for the support. I just want to be overly guarded, because what is it they say? It's really long and really stupid. Like, I mean, it's probably not stupid. It's probably true. But like, your thoughts become words. Your words become whatever. Your words become your habits, maybe, and your habits become your. It's long. You can look it up. I'm gonna stop myself. Do you do glue down vinyl plank flooring in your rehabs and the rental properties, or the ones that click together, trying to figure out which one to use for one of my properties? I use the stuff we put underlayment down and then we click it all together. I don't like the glue down stuff because I don't like glue. I just don't want to glue my floors, man. I hate walking into a property and realize that I'm like paying people to scrape a whole bunch of glue off. So I just don't want to contribute to that. If the pre-foreclosure info on PropStream does not match the info posted on the lawyer's website, could that mean an investor could have already come in and purchased the property from the owner? Perhaps. Or it could just be that PropStream's information is wrong. That's a great question. So generally what I've found, so I will say when I have looked at pre-foreclosures on PropStream, I was very thankful for the ease of which I found it. Generally, the only time that I found pre-foreclosures was like going to the county website, the clerk of courts, and looking at all the foreclosure filings. PropStream allows me to go in on a geographical area and see all of the properties in pre-foreclosure. But then there's definitely still a lot more due diligence that has to be done. And remember, PropStream is just like a giant data aggregator. So it's just a bunch of like surface level scraping. And real estate transactions are often pretty nuanced and pretty in-depth. So when I have found pre-foreclosures on PropStream, I have looked at all the information on PropStream and then went to the actual county websites in order to research it further. So PropStream definitely got me in the door faster, but you still have to cross-check the information that PropStream gives you with the actual county where the auction or foreclosure is taking place. Because the thing that I found that PropStream didn't mention was the amount of the mortgage on the property. And I'm sure PropStream had that information, but PropStream wants you to pay them $5 for each document they pull, where if you know what website to go to, you can kind of pull the document for free for yourself. So I would definitely do that rather than paying PropStream $5 per document. So yeah, there's that. Of course, man. Thank you. And thank you, Ed Harvey. Man, we're going places. And we're already at the bottom of the comment section. Let's see here. What can I expound upon a little bit more? Let's talk about flooring for a little bit. Carpet. I put it in the firehouse, project firehouse. I don't normally do that though. I think carpet might be becoming a thing of the past soon. I'm really impressed with the vinyl plank flooring. Since we started rehabbing properties, we've had a few turns here lately. So that's pretty good. But we have been able to, because we've had some of these properties we rehabbed in like 2 years ago. At first, we were putting laminate down before we switched over to the vinyl planks. And the laminate flooring did not hold up that well. So after one turn, several parts of it were already separating. The vinyl plank so far has held up the best. In one of the properties, one of the first times we used the vinyl planks, we did use the glue down stuff. When we turned that, I think it was just thinner. It was probably a cheaper stuff. And I'm sure you could get higher quality glue down. But this stuff in particular, it has already, you can tell where people walk the most. So a path is already kind of worn into it. I have no idea. That probably has more so to do with the thickness than the fact that it's glued down. And in areas, it has separated a little bit. However, the click together stuff, each time we've turned one of those units, it still looks phenomenal. So there's that. I don't know. I don't have a real estate license. I know very successful investors that have their real estate license, and I also know investors like myself that do not have a real estate license. I have no interest in getting my real estate license, but at the same time, if I had a real estate license, then on this package of properties that we're buying, it's we're under contract at $800,000. So 3% of that, whatever that is, 24,000, I would be able to kind of pay myself. But at the same time, that's not even the appropriate way to look at it, because the realtor is the one that brought this package deal to my attention. I wouldn't have really found it otherwise. So in my opinion, it was worth the 24,000. And as far as my interaction with realtors go, I really, really enjoy them because every transaction that I do, I normally reach out to the listing agent. If I find a property on the MLS that I want to purchase, when I reach out to the listing agent, I do my best to form a relationship with them. I do my best to let them know exactly what I'm looking for in a property, and I also let them know that I'm willing to purchase anything else that fits that criteria. So in theory, it's kind of like a part of the lead generation or the deal flow. So then I've had on several occasions, as soon as I've had about 5 or 6 realtors now, as soon as they get something that they think might interest me, they reach out to me and see if I want to purchase it even before they list it. So that's helpful. And that's part of, my strategy of finding more deals. If I had my license and I used myself for everything, I wouldn't have, that type of deal flow. Hardy. That's a good word. Hardy. 22 millimeters. I don't want any of that stuff. That stuff is that is thick. I think the stuff that we use is in the 5 range. After you buy a peppery, that's good, man. A peppery. Oh no. Let me see if I can show you this. I just got a text message from one of the contractors. That's the electrical box. Somebody stole the meter last night. That's not fun. Well, that's something to fix today. Exciting. Hi again, Ryan. Thanks for being here and sharing your knowledge and experience. I still haven't gotten into the game yet. That's okay, man. We just met like what, a month and a half ago. Don't beat yourself up about that. But my wife is now more on board and wants to help out. Nice. Sounds like a lot of really good conversations have happened. Because if I remember right, the first time you were on here, you didn't think your wife was on board. So congratulations, man. That's a big step. And that means that you have communicated really well. Man, that's a bummer about that meter. Because that's a whole process. You have to fill out so many like affidavits and whatnot saying that you didn't steal it. You don't know who did. Why would you, what do you do with an electrical meter? Why would you steal one? Does that allow you to somehow steal electric then from the company? That's so silly. So silly. All right, I skipped this question. After you buy a property in distress, how do you go about selecting contractors that are trustworthy and drive this process to completion as fast as possible? That's a phenomenal question. There's no real easy way to do this. I would say deal flow, contractors, and financing are easily the 3 most difficult parts of real estate investing on the acquisition side. I guess contractors wouldn't necessarily be on the acquisition so much like the fulfillment, as you just said. Finding good contractors is very hard. There's a high demand for them. And, if a contractor is worth their weight, then they have a packed schedule. So a lot of looking, like most things in life, persistency in looking, a bunch of trial and error, and, noticing red flags and calling them out. One of the things I like to do with the contractors, though, just kind of like as a retention thing, is I like to give them tons of autonomy. I like to let them make the majority of their own decisions themselves. I like to let them kind of have free reign over the project, like what goes into it, what kind of materials they use, the color choices, the flooring choices. I really like to give that over to the contractor. Sure, I'll give them my opinion when they ask for it, but for the most part, I really want them to feel like they're making all the decisions, and I want them to, have that pride of craftsmanship. That way, if it turns out looking strange, then it's kind of on them, right? And that has been I've gotten really good feedback about that. I know other investors try to be a little bit overbearing, pick out all the materials, really dictate and micromanage. And I do my best not to do that. Try to be super laid back and just help them and kind of give them whatever resources they need to complete it. Now, at the same time, I do my best also not to be taken advantage of. So if this is, one of your first deals or whatnot, I'll definitely be a little bit more guarded than that. But as far as finding a contractor, whenever I work with a contractor, I do my very best to give them a couple smaller jobs first, see how they do. If the property is occupied, I like to get the residents' feedback on the individual. Um, and then ideally, when in like the first two jobs, something will be wrong or not quite right. And I'll see if they come back and just fix it, or if they try to consider it like a change order and charge me more. And I try to build trust through smaller jobs at first. Now, of course, that's not always feasible, but that's what I do my best to do. That way you kind of build a rapport with someone before you give them like a complete rehab project. Hey, man, don't worry about correcting yourself. I thought peppery was a lot cooler. Uh, let's see here. Do you think it's the best time to buy property now? Come on, Tech J. Come on. Because many institutions are saying we may hit a market crash. Man, when I started getting in real estate investing in 2016, you can even go back because it was on Bigger Pockets as well. In 2016 and 17, people were screaming up and down that we're about to get another market crash. And if I listened to that and sat on the sidelines, then we would not have our current portfolio of over 100 doors. I think it's worth noting, like I said earlier, in every market, in every season, in every correction, and every, at the top of every market, there are real estate investors out there making money. So the key is to do the things that other people are doing that are making them money, and figure out what other real estate investors do when the market dips to still make money. But sitting on the sidelines, I don't think is ever an appropriate answer. So I am never going to tell anyone to wait, because I think waiting by and large is a bad strategy. My question is, do you think I should start off with a cheap rehab property and fix and flip using other people's money, private money loan, or should I focus on a nicer property, single family, and nicer neighborhood as my first door? Totally up to you, Seamus. But I will tell you that I did not take on a full rehab project until we had 22 properties. Other than that, we may have done some painting. We may have replaced some flooring. But other than that, we bought mostly rent-ready things. So that's my answer. I think taking on the rehab project without any experience is a little risky. I have a good friend of mine. She has 2, maybe 3 rental properties, and she is all the time sending me properties to look at that are quote unquote, she calls them full gut rehabs, and they're not. They're just, need a little bit more TLC than carpet and paint, but not necessarily like a quote unquote full gut. So it's really your risk tolerance. Experience really goes a long way on rehab projects, and having a good crew that you trust. Because if you take on a big project and you don't have contractors that like really have your best interest, then you could really lose your shirt fast. So the safest route to go would be buying close. I wouldn't say a nicer neighborhood, because that sounds like you're paying a premium. But low risk, rent ready properties that still give you a good return with traditional financing, that's the route that I would go. The power company usually installs, though. I don't know why they took it. It took so long for Duke to install mine, and the process is about 2 to 3 weeks in Cincy. Looks like we're going to get ourselves some generators, boys. What's the level of quality in kitchen and bath materials do your renters expect in your properties? Types of countertops, tile, appliances, etc. That's a good question. So we don't supply any appliances in any of our properties, and if we have somebody that wants us to provide appliances, then we will do so. But we charge $25 per month per appliance. So if somebody wants a fridge, a stove, a washer, a dryer, then that's an extra $100 per month. And, I'm not trying to like price gouge people. If you go to someplace like Rent-A-Center or Aaron's, it's like $75 per week per appliance. Pretty crazy. Um, but I've got a spreadsheet where the appliances that we buy, they're new. We don't use used appliances, and I have warranties on those appliances. We don't buy extra warranties, just the warranties they come with. So I just did a quick calculation on like the half-life of the appliances, when the warranty runs out. And ultimately, I just want to start turning a profit on that appliance prior to the warranty running out. That's how I did the math. That's how I came up with the $25 per month. As far as the level of quality in kitchen, I don't know. We're not necessarily in a market where we have people that are picky about that, I don't think. And if they are, then they probably make that determination as they're looking at the pictures, and we don't really hear about it because we have our system set up, or our application process set up, is where we don't show people properties until after they have an approved application. That way we're not running around showing a bunch of properties to people that are unqualified. So we don't get much feedback like that. We've never had anyone not rent one of our places because of the countertop. I could see how that would come into play in a market like yours, in like the DC, Virginia area, where people are paying, $2,000+ per month. I think it'd be really hard to justify that. What we've been putting in our properties here lately have been actually butcher block countertops, which I think are really cool. So there's that. Other than that, I think most of our countertops are laminate, or we just installed one that was like that faux. It's not granite. I think it's still laminate, but I don't know. It just looks kind of marbled. It's not marble though. We've never done any granite. We've never done any marble. We've never done anything other than laminate and butcher block. So, and everybody's happy. And then as far as the cabinets that we use, I don't think we use the cheapest stuff. I don't like using particle board cabinets. That has nothing to do with the tenant's preferences, more so to do with my thoughts on longevity. I think the actual real cabinets, not particle board cabinets, just last longer and are more durable. So that's my answer. And then in the older homes that we have that have like the actual wood cabinets, we keep those. We just change out the hardware, maybe paint them, maybe sand them and stain them. And that's fine too. There's definitely a certain type of person that loves the vintage kitchens and bathrooms. So like one of the people that we just moved out, they have like a very much so like a dated kitchen and bathroom, tile like throughout. It's like the light green and like a light pink type tile. And we keep those so long as they're in good condition. We run with it and people love it. I guess that's kind of back in style now. I like to look at contractors' work, like actually go to a site that they're doing versus sending me pics. Yeah, always go. You pay HOA fees for any of your properties? No. My feelings about, so welcome back, WB Blue. Thanks for coming back this week. You asked some awesome questions last week, and I see that you're already on it today. So thank you for coming here and letting me answer some questions for you. Really appreciate it, man. No, control is a big thing, especially when it comes to real estate. And if you have a HOA, unless you are willing to be on the board and, help make some decisions. Sure, some HOAs are really laid back at first, but if somebody comes in, they can dictate that you spend money, and I don't necessarily like that. So you give up a little bit of control if there's a HOA on board. And the first house that I purchased, actually, for whatever reason, even though we were on a couple acres and in the middle of nowhere, like we had to drive 30 minutes for any grocery store, there was an HOA out there. In theory, They were just supposed to do the street maintenance and the street lights. But man, my neighbor was the president of the HOA, and he had me do all sorts of stuff. And he had so many comments all the time about my yard and when I should cut my grass and when I shouldn't cut my grass. He just talked too much and he bothered me too much. I was like 23, and I wanted nothing to do with any of the things that he ever said. So and my yard was very much so passable, according to me. And that's all that mattered back then. So I might be taking some of my own baggage into consideration whenever I'm talking about HOAs, but I wouldn't mess with them. I would have no interest in it. Thanks, man. I appreciate you stopping by. Have you used Menards for your building materials? Yes, I use all of them. I use Menards, Home Depot, and Lowe's. I don't buy anything from there. The contractors buy the things. I do not buy materials. I tried that once and I ordered so many wrong things that I now don't let contractors talk me into buying things for them. What is your worst experience dealing with a tenant? How do you determine a bad property versus good property? Man, real estate, like, it's a house. There's no bad house or bad or good house, right? It's an inanimate object. The people that own the thing, the people that interact with the thing, make it either good or bad, right? So some people would say that a bad property is one with a bunch of deferred maintenance. Well, you know how you fix a bad property? You fix the deferred maintenance. You get on it. So if you're able to buy a property for cheaper and make the repairs and then come out with a property that's valued more than the money that you spent on it, then you did a good job. So then, by all intents and purposes, it's a good property. Words mean things. So I'm just saying that to be clear, right? No such thing as a bad property or good property, just how you look at a property. So you are really the one that determine whether the property is or is not good. And then what else did you ask? Worst experience dealing with a tenant? I really genuinely love people, and I really genuinely love the properties that we own. And I genuinely want the people to have good properties. And I genuinely want the people to help me keep the properties in really good condition. So if people ask me to fix things, I fix them. I think the only request that I ever said no to was somebody asked me to put carpet over hardwoods, and we didn't. We just refinished the hardwoods because the whole reason she asked that was because her kids were getting splinters. So other than that, man, I mean, I really just don't like it when people are mean. There's just no reason for it. Like, if you have a problem, let's fix it. So I think because I view the properties highly, because I view them highly, I just get a little bit sad when people aren't respectful or nice or, don't pay the way that they should. So, I mean, I think that's as worse as it comes, right? Other than that, most things are what you make it. So, generally, when people aren't nice, I kind of just remind them that we're on the same team. Like, look, we're partnered together to keep this property in tip-top shape. You pay me, I help you keep this property in tip-top shape. That's it. That's as much as it goes. I have a conference at 9. I'll finish watching later. Thanks, man. Everyone hit that like button. Thanks again, everyone, for the questions. Any thoughts or cautions on renting a main portion of a house and the in-law suite separately, separate metered? I don't think so. I mean, residents are really resilient. So long as you're clear, you set the expectations, probably the boundaries of, this section of the yard belongs with this part. This section of the yard belongs with that part. And you are the one that dictate, like, the parking. issues or have them work together to determine who is going to park where, then I think you're going to be okay. Um, People are resilient. People are used to sharing space with other people's, especially in like the kind of multifamily space. So I would kind of look at it as a duplex and just do your best to have clear boundaries and really, over communicate the expectations, and everybody should be pretty good. Not sure if you already answered this, but how can I look for properties and what should I look for without paying for a service like PropStream for time being? Ah, you got me. You got me. You knew that's what I was going to recommend. Let's see here. Let's talk about all of the ways that you can find deals. I'm going to write this down on a sheet of paper. I don't know why I always assume I have a pen in my pocket. Let's see here. So we already talked about realtors. I think realtors are good, and I'm going to use the realtors and the MLS separate, right? So MLS, anything that comes on market, is part of the MLS. Realtors, they're separate from the MLS, although they can put things on the MLS. They also have their own pocket listings. So I'm going to put realtors and in parentheses, pocket listings. You've got foreclosures. You've got pre-foreclosures. You've got wholesalers. So wholesalers are good. Generally, in order to find a wholesaler, I think you kind of try to interrupt their marketing, right? So wholesalers, all they really want to do is build a really big cash buyers list. So if you go to Facebook and type in whatever city you live in, real estate investor, you'll find probably a lot of groups. And inside those groups, you'll likely find a lot of either wholesalers or wannabe wholesalers, and they will send you a good amount of deals. Now, I would also recommend that you most certainly do all of your due diligence, especially with wholesalers, because they're just guessing, and you just have to confirm. I wouldn't take any of their numbers seriously until you verify them. Let's see here. And then you've got word of mouth. So I run my mouth about real estate investing all of the time. And because of that, I meet people that say, oh, my good friend so-and-so has a property that they want to sell. And then I'll look at it. And sometimes I buy them. Now, a lot of times when you find deals this way, it's before somebody has talked to a realtor. It's before they have done their own sort of evaluation. So they are just generally valuing their property, especially in the single family space. Well, actually, I'm only talking about the single family space. They'll value the property mainly off sentiment. Sometimes the sentiment is very low. Sometimes the sentiment is very high. So if it's low, do the right thing and give them a fair price. If it's high, explain to them very nicely why that's a high price. Sometimes they'll put it on the MLS and they'll get that price. Other times they'll, see your comp report and go down. All right, so we got realtors, the MLS, foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, wholesalers, word of mouth. Let's see here. What else do we have? Direct marketing. So, and you know what? I'm going to include direct marketing and driving for dollars in the same driving for dollars because one leads to the other. And driving for dollars is just, going around an area that you think you might want to invest in and look for the properties that have been neglected. They're either boarded up, overgrown vegetation, a bunch of deferred maintenance, all of that. I really want to say PropStream, Seamus. I really do, but I'm not going to because you asked me not to. But otherwise, PropStream would be on my list. And then let's see here. I've purchased a lot of properties from other investors. I'm not so sure if that would fall under word of mouth, but I guess since I'm making this list and I get to make that decision, I'm going to go ahead and put other investors down separately from word of mouth. And the last thing that we should put on here is for sale by owners / Craigslist. That makes sense because those are their own animals. Sometimes for sale by owners put them on the MLS. Other times they just put a sign out in front of their yard. And I guess you'd only see those if you were driving for dollars. But again, my notepad, my rules. Oh man, I wish I could hear you guys laugh. I tried to do a conversation like this on Clubhouse just so that I could hear other people. But then, you guys pointed out that Clubhouse is only for iPhone users. And I've only done it once. 2 people showed up. It was a very fun conversation. It lasted about 40 minutes. So let me know, actually, in this chat if you want to do some Clubhouse stuff, if you're even on that, if you even know what Clubhouse is. For sale by owner / Craigslist. Other than that, I think that's all the ways that you can find the deals. So realtors, the MLS, foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, wholesalers, word of mouth, just running your mouth about real estate to everybody you know all the time. Direct mail marketing / driving for dollars, other investors, and for sale by owners / Craigslist. And now, Seamus, you are well on your way to becoming a real estate deal flow rock star. So if you nurture all of those, make sure that you're constantly doing all those. I mean, the deal flow is going to start rolling in. Yeah, I don't know of any other ways that I've ever found a deal that's not on there. All right, let's see where I left off. Okay. The winning brand, you're back 2 weeks in a row. You're catching. Yes, you are. Thank you. And I guess it is a winning brand because it's a very memorable name. What's better and less costly, gas or electric stoves? No idea, but I only use electric stoves. I don't use gas stoves, mainly because I'm not interested in running a gas line upstairs. We have basements here. So I say upstairs, meaning the main floor. I don't know, man. I don't know. Probably. Good morning. I emailed you, by the way. I hope you got my email. I'm really sorry to hear that. I even shared your story earlier today about $21,000 over market. I like gas stoves. They seem to last longer. We don't provide appliances, so thanks for your great input. Thanks for your great questions. I have $30K home equity loan, but don't seem to get a good property at that price. Don't want to take a mortgage. What do you advise? Lend your money to somebody else as a first position mortgage, or keep building up that money. I mean, if you are putting mortgages out of the picture, then that's clearly important to you for some reason. So I wouldn't compromise that. I would just look for real estate alternatives. Start saving money until you get to a point where you find a house that you're comfortable with. But I don't know, man. I mean, leverage is one of the reasons that real estate is so powerful. I would really encourage you to think long and hard about why you think you don't want a mortgage. If it's just personal preference, then I'll be you do that. But if you're asking me how to spend $30,000 into a $60,000 house without taking on a mortgage, I don't know. If you figure it out, let me know though. Sounds pretty cool. I suppose, well, no, because even if you did seller financing, that's technically a mortgage. I don't know, man. Keep saving up. Lend your money out to an investor. Start investing in some first position mortgages. Yeah, that's all I got for you. Cosmic Wisdom, thanks. Oh, look at that. I finally took the leap and bought a property from the Detroit Land Bank for $1,000 and needs a full rehab. Are you serious? Detroit is still selling homes that cheap? How far away am I from Detroit? Is Ryan Ingram about to go to Detroit? Let's see. 187 miles. Directions. Three hours. Man, I can't do it. Oh, sorry. You asked me a question. I got wrapped up in myself. I apologize. I finally took the leap and bought a property from the Detroit Land Bank for $1,000 and needs a full rehab. Any advice on how to estimate the cost of a one-story, 1,000 square foot? Not really, man. And the reason I say that is every market's rehab costs are different depending on materials and just like the expected labor or the cost of living in that area. So it might be cheaper. It might be more expensive. Generally, so far in the Midwest, since you're also in the Midwest, I'll tell you that we have never spent more than $40,000 rehabbing one property of that size. So I would say you shouldn't spend more than $40,000, and that includes the roof, the mechanicals, the flooring, the drywall, the electric, everything. And in those scenarios, we also reran new wiring throughout the entire house. Good morning. Sorry if the question was already asked, but is there a site to go to see if a home has liens against them, or do you have to go through a real estate agent? You do not have to go through a real estate agent. So you can go to your county's recorder's office. They have a website that you can generally peruse for free. Now, not all states do this, but you should be able to check for the liens on the property in the recorder's office. Other than that, there is this service called PropStream, of which there's a link in the description. It's $97 a month. That link gets you a free 7-day trial, and they get all of that information, and they aggregate all that information for you. Do buyers' agents collect their broker fees from sellers? Do they collect from the buyer? It's all, technically, I guess the seller. So I guess if you agree to buy a house for $100,000, and let's say it's a 6% realtor's commission, the seller gets 3%, and the buyer's agent gets 3%. So $6,000 split between the two of them, $3,000 each. That comes out of the $100,000. You're not bringing $103,000 to cover your buyer's premium. I hope that makes sense. Good morning from Northern California. True inspiration. Much thanks for what you do. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm sorry your prices. I'm sorry your housing market is so serious. What type of loan do you ask for when purchasing a home that if you want to upgrade the property, like painting, kitchen upgrades, can that be included in the loan purchase? Probably not. I think the only loan that I know of that does that from a traditional bank is FHA 203K loan, which, at that point, it has to be an owner-occupied property. So there's that. Other than that, it's kind of on you. If you want to do those things, you have to come out of pocket. It won't be included in the loan amount. And if you wanted to use a hard money lender, then I have heard of the hard money lenders doing 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab costs. But you also have a bunch of origination fees and points charged. So there's that. Good morning, Ryan. How do you get a property that person have been evicted, but it's not listed? Contacting the owners. So I would just utilize PropStream to skip trace the owners and figure out how to contact them and see if they are interested in selling or if they're just in the middle of a turn. It's 50-50, but hey, that's a good point, because at that point it's a point of contingency because evictions are never fun to do, and since that property has temporarily become a pain point because they already have a bunch of money owed to them because of the eviction, and because it's been a headache, they might be a little bit gun shy about putting a new tenant in there. So good job on identifying a really good time to reach out to somebody and try and buy their property. Good work. Since you do your own property management, how do you market your rental properties for prospective renters? Man, you missed it earlier, Raul 1972. I went through, so I use Appfolio. That's the property management software that I use. And I create a description and I post pictures to Appfolio. And then Appfolio, when I hit the button that says post to internet, it pushes it out to about 40 different websites. And I read those off earlier on the call. So if you want, you can kind of go back. I don't remember at what point I did that, but that's all I do. I don't, because Appfolio makes it so easy, I don't do anything else in addition to that. Good question. No, thank you, Alba B. There's a contractor in Detroit that does land bank rehabs, Denson Construction. She may be able to help. That's really cool. The owner was evicted. Also, skip trace prop stream. The owner was evicted. So they were foreclosed on? So it's a pre-foreclosure? If it's a pre-foreclosure, then you should figure out, you should go to the clerk of courts, figure out who the complainant is, who's actually doing the foreclosure. PropStream probably has that information on the mortgage information side of things. You can try to contact the bank to see if they're willing to just sell it to you directly. But if they actually already went through the foreclosure process because they're an evicted owner, then it should be a bank-owned property. So if they haven't listed it yet, then yeah, your best bet is to contact the bank, try to figure out who you need to talk to. I've only tried to do that once, and that was with Deutsche Bank. And I think the company is just too big. I could never get to the appropriate person to talk to. So that never worked. But if it's not listed anywhere, I would watch for it on places like Hubzu or auction.com, or I would really try to talk to the bank as quickly as possible before they, sign a contract with a realtor or shove it over into something that would completely box you out. I was probably hitting the snooze button. No worries. Northern California, it's 6 o'clock up there. I appreciate you waking up and being here with us. So that's awesome. And we're up to 20 people. I saw 24 a while ago, and that's really cool. That makes me feel like I'm actually doing something. That's definitely a classroom full of people. In the first 15 minutes, we had 9 people on. That was the highest that we've gotten and the quickest that we've gotten so high. So I really appreciate all of you for being on here. This is tons of fun. I love doing all of these things, answering all these questions. So since you're just now getting on, I just want to remind everybody this Giles' birthday. Happy birthday again, Giles. So much fun. I hope you're still on here. What better way to spend your birthday? Just kidding. We're at the bottom of the comment list. So any other questions you might have, hey, post them in the chat. Need more likes. That's okay, man. I'm not a slave to this here algorithm. I do this for you. If more viewers see it, so be it, but that's okay. I'm not one to really care. I did for a while, and it was very stressful, and I didn't like it. So I'm not doing that. The main way that I make money is via real estate investing, not YouTube. But I also don't know what I'm talking about. Let's see here. There we go. Post your questions in the chat. Let's have a good time. 21 people. Thank you. I really appreciate you all. What are your thoughts? I have no thoughts. I'm very sorry. I'm a one-trick pony. I only invest here in Dayton, Ohio, and the surrounding areas. I am not familiar with any other parts of Ohio. I have a few, because I also own an insurance agency where I insure other investors. So we've got a few investors that we insure up in like the Cleveland area, even the Toledo area. But we actually don't have, to my knowledge, we don't insure anyone in the Youngstown. I've never even heard of Warren. We insure a few properties in Plymouth, Bucyrus. Oh, Ashtabula. And there's another place that starts with a C outside of Lake Erie. Man, what is it? Ashtabula and Conneaut. Conneaut. Yeah, but I don't know anything about that. Peace for all. Good morning, sir. Thank you for what you do for the community. Thank you. What is the maximum you pay for the house? So far, the most I've ever spent on a rental property was $122,500, and that is the nicest house that we own, besides the one that I live in. It is gorgeous and massive. It has a 3-car heated garage. And the only reason that we bought that one was because it was a good deal. It was in the neighborhood that we live in, and it appraised for 200,000, and we had to put about 15,000 into it to bring it back up to speed and to make it once more gorgeous. So, I mean, truthfully, there's no maximum so long as the numbers work. So we're going to rent that property out for $1,500 a month. So it's a little bit higher than the 1% property, 1% rule. We generally try to hit the 2%. So I'm perfectly okay paying 200 grand for a house if I can rent it for 4 grand, right? I realize that's probably not possible. So the higher value you get, generally the closer you get to the 1% rule. But so long as the numbers work and we can make a couple $100 after all the expenses, we would likely do it. I generally like to stay around the 2% mark, though. The bulk of our portfolio hits the 2% mark, if not higher. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I must catch this next time because I did not know about this live. Very informational. Thank you. Thank you for being here every Friday morning. I think it's on the banner, but nobody looks at people's banners on YouTube. But yeah, every single week, on Friday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm here. Any laws against marketing to pre-foreclosures in Ohio? Success rate with cold calling, pre-foreclosures / probate? Not that I know of, but I don't know much. That's why this disclaimer is here. I definitely, if I knew about any, I would tell you. That's for sure. But I don't know of anything. I don't know about success rates either. Doing that is not like a major arm of our business. So it's not like I'm making a certain number of calls per day. So I don't know. I've never calculated success rate. I just, if I see a property and I want it, I'll do my best to get it. And I've never even thought about how many properties I've set out to purchase and I didn't. So I don't know. I don't think I can calculate that. Are you able to be the real estate agent for a home you are trying to flip? Would it be considered for sale by owner? I've seen people do this. Oh, wow. We're at 25 people. Thank you so much, everyone. 9 a.m. must be the sweet spot. Yes, you can be the real estate agent as far as I know. I've seen some disclaimers in the description that says like the listing agent owns this property, or, this is an agent listing or something like that. Agent owned. This is an agent owned property. I think it has to be disclosed, but I'm pretty sure it's allowable. I'm like 99% positive you can do it. How can you determine what your mortgage payments will be before applying for a loan? Funny you ask that. Great question. I use a loan calculator. Let me see if I can find it. It's just called Loan Calc. It's black and yellow letters. But if you give me like another week and a half, we are actually creating our own app. It's going to be called the Ingram Rental Calculator. Very clever, right? Very original. And we're going to have, when I'm calculating rental properties, I have about 3 apps that I regularly use. And I'm just taking pretty much the gist behind those 3 apps and putting them into one, which is the Ingram Rental Calculator. So you're going to be able to calculate the loan amount. We're working right now on seeing if we can add an amortization schedule pretty easily for you to access and be able to see. That way you can just see the power of leverage and the power of your principal pay down over time. And then it's also just going to be like a full-blown rental calculator where you put in all the expenses, all the income, and figure out if it's a profitable investment or not. And then, of course, you'll be able to learn a little bit about me. Link to the YouTube channel and all the affiliate links. Well, the ones that I'm like most proud of, like all the books that I've read, PropStream. Those are the two really that I care about. And then also the Seek Wisdom Mastermind that I do. Some information on that. Do you have any quick pointers or tips running a good comp using PropStream? Yes, I do. I have a lot of opinions on this because I spent a lot of time talking to an appraiser to figure out how to most accurately do this. So obviously condition is a factor, but the way that you want to first filter everything is via square footage. So you want to be plus or minus about 10%. So if it's a 1,000 square foot house, you might want to run a search for properties between 900 and 1,100 square foot. After that, you want to kind of weed it out through like bedrooms and bathrooms. So if it's a 3-1, you want to do your very best to have, 3 or 4 really good comps that are just about like as close to your square footage as possible, and the same, not necessarily floor plan, but the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms. So once you have those two nailed down, then you want to further define it via condition. So that's another reason that I like PropStream is just on one little page, you can look at all of the pictures if available for the other properties. So you're able to go through and see if it's like a derelict property, which if the price differentiates too much, then that's likely what it is. It's just a rundown property. So you would not want to include that one. If yours is just like a run-of-the-mill house, and then you have another comp that's way high, but it has like granite countertops, everything has been like recently remodeled, it's clearly a flip, then you're not going to want to include that one either because it's not the same finishes. Other than that, I think you just became a Ingram certified PropStream comp runner. Do you have a website and ad campaign that you use to capture off-market deals? If not, why not? It's never really been a major arm of our of our business. Our business model. Okay, so first, before I launch into like a rambling response, I would like to do that very regularly. And I think once we start delegating more of our tasks and once we bring on some employees to shoulder a lot of the workload, then I think I will develop that arm where we are regularly doing a lot more like direct mail or direct marketing or campaigning to find off-market deals. I think that would be a really powerful strategy. Right now, we are leaning very heavily on realtors, their off-market listings, wholesalers, and word of mouth and other investors. Those are our main 4 ways to get deals. Because the way our business model is, we concentrate very heavily on one area. Each time I'm just driving around in the normal functions of caring for a portfolio, and I see a property that I'm interested in, I add it to PropStream, I skip trace it, and I reach out to them a couple of times. And if I don't get a hold of them, I visit whatever PropStream says that their mailing address is, and I try and talk to them there. So it's not something that I am very efficient at, and I probably should do that once I don't have so many moving parts or things on my plate. So thank you, Greg C. Definitely an area that I want to improve on and just haven't yet executed. Roof stock. I don't have too many opinions about roof stock. Never used them. Don't need a turnkey provider. By and large, I think turnkey providers are a little on the scammy side. I think if you're willing to put in some legwork, then you will be much better off than utilizing a turnkey rental property company. Because I mean, even the name is misleading, right? Like that's good marketing, turnkey rental. Like what does that mean? It means it's a house without any deferred maintenance. Well, why do you need a company to do that, right? So then all these turnkey companies will try and put in a whole bunch of benefits to you that sound nice, like guarantee rent until, they place a tenant, and a whole bunch of things that don't make sense that they can somehow in their mind justify charging you over and above market value for this quote unquote turnkey rental. I think if you are willing to put in the work, if you want to find the properties yourself, then you are going to be much better off in the long run. Who did you expect? 87. What a great username. Thank you. Do you handle the work yourself as far as renovation? If not, as a new real estate investor, how do you build trustworthy relationships with contractors in an unfamiliar area? Great question. In a perfect world. So no, I don't do anything. Yeah, I do my very best to never touch a property. Now, I have a few times I've received calls at strange hours after I took over property management. And I was like, oh man, I need to go there. And I went there just to realize that as I'm in front of the situation, I said to myself, wow, this is silly that I came out here because I have no idea how to fix this. So it was very silly. But I said this earlier on the call. I know you weren't on yet. Who did you expect? Did not expect you to be on the call earlier either. But the ideal situation with contractors is I hire them for smaller jobs first, see how they do, follow up with them, and hopefully something goes wrong on one of the smaller jobs, and I get to see if they come back out and fix it, or if they try to submit a change order or make them pay for something that they should cover. So that's how I kind of do it. Out of state investing, I'm not good at that, man. I don't know anything about it. Never done it. Don't know how to build relationships if you're not going to be there or near the property. Do you have properties with a pool? Nope, we're not. So we're in the Midwest. We're in Dayton. It snowed yesterday, even though it's April. Pools are not common here. And anytime I buy a property that has a pool there, the insurance company that I use does not allow there to be pools on the premise. So they would have to be removed. Now, of course, if there was an in-ground pool there, then I would not write it with that insurance company. But all of my rentals are with one insurance company. And they don't like above ground pools or trampolines. So if they have them, then we have to have them removed. I'd never rent a house with a pool. The liability risk is too high for me personally. You're probably right. Do you think you will ever invest out of state? I was tempted to earlier when we were talking about Detroit, but then I stopped myself. I think I will, but only after all of the deals in Dayton dry up. If you spend around the max of $40K for a full rehab, do you apply the same estimate when taking on an auction or HUD home? Man, that's a really good question. You're really paying attention. So that 40 grand includes a roof. And also windows. So you can rule those out even just looking at it from the exterior. So I guess, yes, I guess I would. But you can rule a few things out. So that 40 grand also includes drywall throughout the entire home. So if I can peek in the windows and see that the walls look okay, then you could take the drywall off. If I can look at the roof and see that the roof is fine, then you could take that roof off. If you can see the AC unit or the furnace from a basement window, then you can kind of take those off. So there are things that you can work backwards from. But yes, 40 grand is my doomsday number. Me going in, redoing everything. Good work. Good work, Raul, 1972. How does an in-person conversation usually go when you go talk with a potential seller? hey, my name is Ryan. I see that you own this property here. I have no idea if you're interested in selling it, but if you are, I would like to discuss buying it from you. That's about it. That's the one line I got. And then we just talk about things. People are generally receptive. Generally, just take your information, worst case scenario, and you may never hear from them again. But these conversations and types of things, I know we've had a couple times we've kind of spoken about this, and I don't know. I'm not one for scripts. I worked for an insurance company once that had me memorize this really long script, and I just couldn't make it work because it wasn't me talking. So I generally go into conversations now pretty loosey goosey, just with a loose idea of what I would like to accomplish with the conversation, but I don't spend too much time trying to come up with this formulaic thing. Um, you know, I really don't come probably as prepared as most people would like to be, but um, I just don't see the benefit in putting a lot of time or effort into coming up with particular things to say, and just to like be rejected immediately, or never get to even talk about half the things, or the conversation just go completely off the rails, not one way. So I guess if I were to hire people to have these types of conversations for me, then I would do the decency of providing them with like a loose script. But most certainly, I think, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that is probably the best script, right? Just always make it about them, make everything about them, try and solve their problems, and get really into, whatever it is about them that you can find. And, you have to back that up with like a legitimate desire to help them, not take advantage of them. And I think once you hit all those boxes, you're probably a pretty good person and pretty good to go. Do you not try not to do anything yourself because most contractors guarantee the work for a certain time? Uh, no, no. Yeah, I don't do work myself because I don't know how to do anything. So, and it really depends on like what you're trying to do. Like if you've got two or three properties, and you have the skill set to do all the work yourself, then perhaps for a little bit it would make sense for you to do so. But let's talk about a few deals that I've done recently. We bought one property. Now these are not our typical deals where we are all in on the property for like 50 grand, right? So here recently we have got in touch with a new lender and they've allowed us to take down some more higher valued homes. So we purchased one property for 80 grand. It's worth 145,000. So that's what, $65,000 worth of equity. So now the deal becomes, don't spend $65,000 in rehabbing the property and we'll be good to go. Um, the other one that I mentioned, we bought it for 122,500 and appraised for 200,000. We've purchased several properties recently in like the $30,000 to $40,000 range that have appraised for the $60,000 and $70,000 range. We've purchased another property for, what is it, like 55 grand, and it appraises for like right around 85 or 90. So if you can make these massive amount of equity gains in the acquisitions of property and you have the skill set to do that, and then you can hire contractors for $15 to $50 an hour to do tasks, then I think one could make the argument that the highest and best use of your time is acquisitions and structuring deals rather than being caught up on doing your own renovations. Now, I get that that type of advice is a little bit limited. If you are not looking to build a massive portfolio, then perhaps that thought process doesn't apply. If your goal is to have 10 rental properties and run them as effectively and efficiently as possible, kind of like King said earlier, where he doesn't want any mortgages, then perhaps it would make most sense for him to do the work himself. That way he can lower his expense and really treat those 10 properties like retirement income or passive income, besides the fact that he's actively working on them. So those examples like that, I think that makes a little bit of sense. Houses are very cheap in Cleveland, Ohio. However, property taxes are very high. How do you weigh pros and cons? I think Ohio has high property taxes, especially when you compare it to places like Florida. The only thing that I can think of is like road maintenance, right? There's a lot that goes into, salting all the roads, salting all the sidewalks and all of that. So that's the only reason that I can think that Ohio property taxes are so extraordinarily high. Whereas your southern states don't have all of that street maintenance expense. So maybe property taxes aren't as high. Now, I'm just guessing. I've never asked anyone why Ohio taxes are so much higher. But since I was in law enforcement and kind of familiar with city expenses and whatnot, that's the only difference that I can see, because it's truly night and day. Like when it snowed down in North Carolina when I lived there, we went into a state of emergency in Durham over a couple inches of snow just because we don't really, I think the whole county had one salt truck, maybe one plow. Whereas I have seen in Dayton, sometimes 2 or 3 of these salt trucks / snow plows side by side, clearing roads out real fast. So that's my take on it. So long as the cash flow covers the taxes, your income covers all the expenses, and there's a couple $100 left over. It's kind of one of those things that you kind of just have to get over. Taxes are definitely one of those things that people like to complain about, kind of like gas prices, right? But let's say you have a trip you want to go on and gas prices spiked, $2. What are you going to do? Cancel your trip? Or are you just going to pay $2 extra per gallon and go on your trip and kind of get over it and chalk it up as a necessary expense to go on your vacation? Rental property is kind of the same with property taxes. I don't know what else you can do. It's not like you can go in and demand lower property taxes. That won't get you very far. So it's kind of one of those things you just have to put in the box and get over. Are there any challenges, or is it difficult these days to cash, refi a free and clear rental property? What do the banks look for? Same things that they would look for if you were to go out and buy a home. So I don't think it's any different. I don't think any banks are not doing cash out refinances at the moment. We have done them a lot. Hi, I'm in Atlanta, where I love to start flipping. Do you think 40K is? No idea. You tell me. Oh, enough. You got it. Man, I should have looked down one more. I don't know, man. It really depends on the deal and what type of financing you have behind you. If you have a bank that's willing to do for a flip 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab, then 40K probably is enough. If you have a bank if you don't have a bank and you have to do the whole thing in cash, what little I know about the Atlanta market, that's probably not enough. So how do you find these deals with huge equities? We made a list earlier about how to find deals, right? Realtors and their pocket listings, the MLS, foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, wholesalers, word of mouth, direct marketing / driving for dollars, other investors, and for sale by owners / Craigslist. Other than that, it's just negotiating down the purchase price, and then taking advantage sometimes. I've gone over a lot of the deals explained videos that I've done in the past. Some of them I've done, they were right on the MLS, and unfortunately, whoever posted them on the MLS just didn't necessarily do enough homework, and they didn't price them appropriately. So, I constantly monitor the MLS, and anytime, like I said, I concentrate heavily on one area. I'm very, very well versed in about 2 different zip codes, and I can tell you a number of Number of beds, baths, condition, and location, probably within about $5,000 of what the comps would say that it's worth. So because of that, anytime I see something come up on the MLS that might be priced misappropriately, or if I see or get offered a property where there's a lot of room there, I just go ahead and buy it. So it's just about constantly looking for deals, being very well versed in your market, what's available, what things are selling for. I mean, I probably spend, 2 to 3 hours a day looking at properties. So, there's one zip code that you tell me the street and the bedrooms and baths, and I can tell you what a property in good condition will sell for. When you bundle your rental properties under one new mortgage, is that classified as a commercial loan? Yes. So it's not 30-year amortization, and it's not your typical Fannie Freddie mortgage rates. So most of our loans are like 20 to 25-year amortization periods at probably a point or 2 points higher than what you would expect to get on your like a private or like a residential loan. After you buy the first investment property, you fix it and rent it. Hey, we're at 26 people again. Just saw that out of the corner of my eye. Thank you, everybody. I feel like I am, at this point, we have stepped up from one of those classrooms that's just like a table in the middle and people just kind of sit around it. We have escalated ourselves now to one of those new fancy classrooms where it's more of an auditorium with stadium-like seats and your little arm lever desktop. So thank you for joining us in this auditorium today. Please use that tiny desk that is too small to the best of your ability to take notes and write down the questions that you want to ask as I'm speaking. Oh, man. My son would laugh if he were here. He's 4 and he thinks I'm hilarious. After you buy the first investment property, you fix it and rent it. Then how do you come up with the cash for the next investment property? That's a great question, Peace for All. So the first investment property, let's say that we purchase it in cash, and then we pay for the rehabs in cash. Then we will get it rented, like you suggested. And then we will approach a bank and say, hey, this property is rented out. Generally, some banks have seasoning. We've seen as little as like 0-month seasoning and as long as like 18-month seasoning, which is how long you have to own the property before you can pull the money out. So whatever bank we find that wants to work with us, we will satisfy their seasoning, and then we will do a cash out refinance. So if it's not seasoned, then they would perhaps give you 75% loan to cost. So if you had $100,000 in the property of your own money, property wasn't seasoned, you can probably find a bank that will give you 75% of $100,000. So they'll give you $75,000 out to go do that again, which is a perfect model. You would be left in a high equity position, but you would not be able to do that too many times, because each deal you did, you would be leaving 25% of your money behind. So if it's seasoned, then they would do 75% of the value, or the appraised value. So let's say you have $100,000 into it, but the property is worth $150,000. They would give you 75% of $150,000. So that would actually allow you to pull a little bit of cash out. So you might have, I had to pick something that I couldn't do in my head very easily. $150,000 times, boy, I did that wrong too. I did it the wrong way. Times 0.75. So you would actually pull out, $12,500 in addition to the $100,000 that you put in. So that kind of gives you a little bit more momentum to go down and tackle the next deal. Similarly, our model is we borrow money from friends and family at 10 to 12%, and we will acquire a property. So we'll borrow the full amount of the purchase price and the rehab costs. Now, we only do that because we know that we're buying properties at a discount and they'll appraise for higher. So in that same scenario, let's say we borrowed 100 grand to take down the acquisition and the rehab. Then we would go to the bank afterwards, same scenario, but then, it appraises for 150. We take out 75%. We get $112,500. We pay back the initial investor their $100,000, and then we get $12,500 for that transaction to go take down the next deal. And hopefully that first investor that we use wants to give us that same 100 grand again for us to go tackle it again. So that is how we have built the majority of our portfolio, is utilizing other people's money in exchange for first position mortgages. So for whatever reason we defaulted during that process, then the investor would get the property. And I like to kind of say it in a manner. Now, obviously, we're never going to default on purpose. And most of our investors don't want to be actual property owners. So it's not of any use to them to repossess the property. But in the event that they did, they purchased a $150,000 home for 100 grand, which is, it leaves them in a better position than they arrived to us in the event that we default. So that makes sense to me. I hope that makes sense to you. That is hilarious that you saw that on Google Maps. Oh man, that's hilarious. Do you think PropStream, CMAs, and property values are accurate? I think that they are close. I don't think so it's impossible, in my opinion, and this is why I think appraisers are always going to have a job, is if you look at PropStream and their estimated property values, or Zillow and their estimated property values, they are all going to be wonky because a computer, as far as I know, Elon might tell me I'm wrong, Zillow takes into consideration all of the properties that have sold. So the super distressed properties. So if you bought a property if you're buying a property that's worth 100 grand, but the one right next door has been abandoned for a decade and it just sold for 15 grand, well, that's going to lower the value of your property. Whereas an appraiser is going to go in there and say, the conditions here are drastically different. That property should not be included in the estimate of this property's value. In fact, if you go this way, you can see that, the values are whatever. And they might even be able to say that your property is worth 120, whereas Zillow or PropStream or anybody else said it might be worth 70 or 80 because they're taking into consideration all the foreclosures, all the sheriff sales. That's the same thing as foreclosures. I'm getting tired. How long have we been doing this? 2 hours? Okay, I'll give myself some slack. All the foreclosures, all of the distressed properties that have sold for a variety of other reasons, and properties in all types of conditions. So until any of these companies create some sort of algorithm that can take a distressed property or the condition of a property into consideration, I don't think I would ever rely on them without a bunch of asterisks or additional research. Good morning, Lisa. You were here last week. Obviously, the name is generic, but that mug, I remember the mug. Good morning. What do you like most about being an investor? I appreciate you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you. The thing that I like most, is honestly just being able to provide for my family and create wealth for the future generations. I mean, if you're familiar with my story at all, just a little over 4 years ago, April of 17 is when I left law enforcement, and we bought our first rental property in August of 17. So when I was in law enforcement, I made 44 grand a year. And, the reason that I even left was because my wife and we had our first kid, and it was really important for us that she be a stay-at-home mom. So I was scratching my head because at that time we had 17 acres. We just built a house. We would have been reverting to living paycheck to paycheck if we tried to live on my salary alone. So I was kind of scratching my head saying, how in the world can I provide the kind of lifestyle for my family that we really want to live? So that's when I started reading one book per day until I could figure out how to make more money and how to, provide for my family in a manner that we were all comfortable with and proud of, and also not simultaneously struggling or having to like limit our activities for monetary reasons. So, I mean, at the end of the day, any sort of investing is just a tool to live the type of lifestyle that you want and to leave the type of legacy that you want. So, if you are investing for any reasons other than that, then it's probably a bit vain and probably a bit unnecessary. So, um, yeah, I mean, being able to have 4 kids that have a phenomenal mother that stays at home with them, and to be able to, um, you know, secure not only the present for my family, uh, but also give my kids a little bit of a leg up to where they have more freedom to go out, explore the world, figure out what type of value they want to bring the world, what type of impact they want to have on the world, and just be able to kind of set up society for success. And then if you venture past my family, it also feels really good to have these properties knowing that I want to keep them in phenomenal condition, and providing other families with a reliable, property manager that doesn't defer any maintenance and that fixes anything that goes wrong as quickly as possible, so that they have a phenomenal, reliable, and affordable place to live. That feels really good too. So, like on the About Me page, I kind of mentioned that I think the reason or the meaning for life is being the best version of yourself for the benefit of all those around you, and that's what I really think life is about. And I think that is what I appreciate most about the vehicle of investing, is it allows me to provide value and also be rewarded economically for providing that value. Long answer, but thank you for letting me do it. In your videos breaking down the cost, expenses, will you ever consider breaking down the rehab costs in detail, such as total costs of the kitchen versus bathrooms? I don't know how beneficial that would be. I mean, so first off, first off, who says that? I guess I did. That sounded just a little bit too aggressive. Um, So my brother and I recently went down to a kind of a real estate investing conference. Uh, Man, how do I want to say this? Uh, so the way that we currently get our jobs priced out is we get a labor cost and a material cost, and we know what needs to be done to a property, and we take that and we check it for its like reasonableness. We might use a standard $5,000 for a kitchen and $3,500 for a bathroom. And if they come back and say to do a new kitchen and bathroom, it's going to be 15,000, we're going to say no thanks. So we don't itemize all of the things. We don't go into detail that much. Now, I guess we do get like, hey, to paint the entire house, it's this, which includes the kitchen and the bathroom. But I'm not trying to take on an unnecessary workload, and I don't necessarily see the long-term benefit of me monitoring how much it costs to redo each kitchen or bathroom. So, sure, I don't want to spend an unnecessary amount rehabbing anything, but at the same time, very seldom do I ever see or want to see like a real itemized list. Because, at the end of the day, if you find a really good contractor, they might not be a really good business person. And if they're not a very good business person, then they might give you a very fair price, but there's not going to be like extraordinarily detailed invoices. I work with a lot of contractors who it's like their least favorite part. So they will tell me a number and they'll stick by that number. And yes, it'll be written somewhere. But as far as itemizing everything out, by and large, that's, I would say, kind of unnecessary paperwork. So it might be good in theory. It would definitely make for a good video, but I'm not willing to do the work behind that because I don't view it necessary. And when I started mentioning the real estate conference earlier, one of the things that he said was don't do anything that you couldn't also 10x. So, of course, that's only speaking of scalability. Whereas if you had like a smaller portfolio, perhaps it is very wise to, itemize each thing to make sure, especially while you don't understand exactly what all is included. But once you have like a good working relationship with a contractor, like there are multiple contractors that I don't really even ask for quotes for anymore. We just get the work done. We pay labor hours and materials. So, yeah, that's my answer on that. Do you think I need help from a realtor to find my first flipping? That's up to you. I mean, I think probably in order to buy it, if it's on the MLS, you definitely need a realtor. But as far as getting the help of a realtor, there's this really weird thing that happens where realtors, by and large, buy and are help their clients buy homes to live in, right? So I think a realtor might be able to say like, hey, this property looks distressed. If it were like brand new and great condition, I could probably sell it for this because they know the market, right? But at the same time, you run into this weird thing where not all realtors are investors, not all realtors are flippers. So having knowledge of the market is one thing, but being able to identify opportunity and a good deal might be another, right? So if the realtor knew, hey, this property is distressed, selling for X, and if it were fixed up, I could probably sell it for Y, right? I wouldn't trust those numbers. And I would also be a little bit leery because if they had the opportunity to do that, then it would most certainly make them more money to do that themselves rather than like the 3 to 6% commission that they would make off of it. So I definitely think utilizing realtors in that fashion would be beneficial. I don't think that I would lean heavily on them to find that first deal. I would encourage you more so to find another investor in the area that you're in that flips properties regularly, and I would look for them for help to try to find your first property. Thanks, Jeb Stewart. I really appreciate you writing that and saying that. That means the world to me. And in addition to that, we're at the bottom of the comment list. You have any questions, Jeb Stewart? I'll tell you what, because you just said something really nice, I'll answer one question for you for free. You know what? No. I'll answer 2 questions for you for free. Oh, man, that's funny. I really love these live streams. And today is a good one. We've got 23 people on. I'm very happy. We've been going for 2 hours. And hey, I'm ready to take down some more questions. So if you got any, throw them at me. You guys have been asking some awesome ones. Josue, you've been asking a bunch of them, a bunch of really good questions. Raul, you've been on fire this morning. Peace for all, knocking them out. I can't say this, but you've been asking a bunch of questions. Really good. Tom, you showed up. You showed up and you asked some awesome questions. Who did you expect to ask a better question other than who did you expect? And Greg C., thanks for coming out again, man. I really appreciate it. Everybody else, come on, let's go. Or are you all questioned out after a measly 2 hours? Truth be told, I'm just entertaining myself since my wife and kids are out of town. Normally, this is when we just about wrap everything up. So if you guys are getting tired, I understand. This is normally when we would stop. We have bought a couple properties from auction. Let's see here. I did a video. I bought a house for $9,500 from an auction, and it was the absolute worst house I've ever been in. It's a beautiful house now after we dropped, I think, 35 grand on it. So we had a total of like 44,000 into it. I thought we were going to be upside down on it, but for whatever reason, it appraised for like 54 grand. I thought it was going to be worth around 30, honestly. But because I'm willing to hold it for 30 years, I wasn't completely beating myself up for being what I thought would be about $15,000 underwater on it. Because at this point, it's been a maintenance-free property for about 3 years. So that's beneficial. The scariest part about auctions is you have no idea what you're getting into. You don't have access to the interior generally and legally. So if you look at a property, it could very easily be trash on the inside. So it's hard to calculate how much repair you're going to have to do. Now we've also gotten lucky, and we bought one property for $2,500 from a sort of kind of like an auction. And it needed like 10 grand worth of work. And that one has been a phenomenal maintenance-free home for quite some time, because even though it was just 10 grand, that 10 grand was wrapped up in kitchen, bathroom. And I say kitchen, really just cabinets, countertop, new plumbing, and paint and flooring. So pretty solid. How do you find a real estate investor agent? I would say the easiest way to do that is to go to your local Facebook group. Investors, I don't know why, but there are tons of investor groups on Facebook. You could also go to Bigger Pockets and look for realtors, local realtors on Bigger Pockets. Likely, if a realtor is on Bigger Pockets, they likely consider themselves to be investor-friendly realtors, because the only real reason to be on Bigger Pockets is to work with investors, especially if you're a vendor. And then the Facebook groups, that's what I would hit. For rental properties that have existing tenants, what's the best strategy to rehab and make renovations while the tenants are renting? That's a phenomenal question. We don't do it. Whenever we buy a property that's occupied, we definitely walk through it with the tenants and we figure out what they want fixed. But likely, tenants don't say things like, I want a new bathroom and I want new kitchen cabinets. And one of the reasons that they don't say this is if you did that, presumably you would be able to get higher rent for it, and they don't want their rent to increase. So if a property is rented for a reasonable rate, then we do not increase the rents. We only fix any issues that they may have. A lot of times door handles are falling off. Some faucets might be leaking. One house that we just bought, the tenant had a pretty big list of things that he wanted fixed, but they were all extraordinarily reasonable. And after I agreed to fix all these things, he even offered to help pay for some of them. There were some broken windows, some screen doors, the handles had broken off, a whole bunch of like just functionality things. Their toilet was a little bit messed up. So I would do the things to make it comfortable and livable, but I would not do the things to rehab or renovate it. I would only do the things that they asked for, unless you wanted to raise the rent dramatically. And if you wanted to do that, I would just be very forthright with them, because no contractors like working around occupied properties, especially on the larger rehabs and stuff. So I would highly recommend that you give them a 30-day notice, let them know that you're non-renewing their lease or anything like that, get them out of there, then renovate it, and then put it on the market for probably above market rent since it's recently renovated. Seamus, thanks for still being here, man. You've been on here for a while. I feel like we've been hanging out now. Would you be willing to speak about a typical full deal, as in look, find, comp, contact whoever, considerations, bank, basically a quick rundown of how you go through the whole process? Man, I would love to, but it only takes a minute at this point, and generally I'm in my bed while I do it. Every morning, overnight, Trulia, Zillow, the MLS, some wholesalers, they send me emails about deals, and I go through them really quick. I mean, because like I said earlier, I know the markets. It wouldn't be too fancy. I don't really run comps. for deals. I really focus on 2 areas in Dayton. And like I said earlier, I mean, I know pretty well what everything is worth, or at least for the moment, what everything is going for. So it's like a quick mental thing. So I don't run comps. I find them just, from the kind of the methods of deal flow that I kind of already have set up. Um, and then let's see here. If it's a wholesaler, I'll let them know what I'm willing to offer based on what I think the condition of the property is. Generally, I don't go out and look at any properties anymore until we have it under contract. And then if it is extraordinarily different from the pictures, we'll just go ahead and back out. If it is pretty much as the pictures stated, we'll go through with the initial offer that I did that included, just all the rehab. And, for the most part, let's say we have to replace the flooring in the kitchen. If there's like hardwood throughout the rest of the house, then we won't obviously cover that. But if it's anything else, we won't like just do the flooring in the kitchen. We'll do the flooring throughout the entire home. We don't like paint one room. We would paint the whole house, things like that. So generally, if we're keeping the kitchen, if we're keeping the bathroom, then I'll budget maybe 10 grand to go in, do flooring, do paint, and then just do the whole punch out item list. So I'll, subtract 10 grand from 70% of the comps. Kind of go from there. I have no opinions about this, but you sure have been doing your homework. Ask me about roof stock and home snap. Let me ask you, man, what do you think about roof stock and home snap? What value do you think that those provide you or could provide you? I've heard one of my mentors mention home snap, and all he was doing was referencing like the home snaps estimate of the property value, similar to the Zillow's Zestimate. No questions yet. We'll be back for the next one. Going through my 100 properties. Okay, now that you have 100 properties, you're talking about that thing where I said, if you analyze 100 properties on a spreadsheet and send it to me, I'll give you an hour of my time. Yeah, awesome. Good work, man. I can't wait for that conversation. You better email me. Do you have my email? Let me give it to you. There we go. Ryan@seekwisdom.us. Looking forward to talking to you, man. It's exciting. Very exciting. I have a lot of questions. I'm new in this. I'm a full-time aircraft. Nice. Here in Atlanta, and I want to start flipping. I don't know how to start. Man, reach out to me. Send me an email as well. I have a good friend of mine who he's retired now. He was in the Air Force for like the full duration as an aircraft mechanic, and then he also worked for the airlines as a mechanic. And he's now an investor, and he's become one of my good friends. And he loves helping people get started. So not only could you two talk a lot about being an airplane mechanic, but you could also talk about how to get started in real estate investing and all. And, because of your profession, he also lived down in Atlanta for a while and is familiar with that market too. So hit me up, man. I'll introduce you to. Well, I don't want you to kill anything. That's the first recommendation that I have. What advice would you give to a new investor from out of town looking to buy a property in Cleveland? Good luck. Here's the best advice that I can give anyone looking to invest here from out of state. By and large, if you're out of state investing, the thing that's going to destroy you the most is your property management company. I, for the life of me, absolutely cannot figure out how in the world property management in a C or low B class area is a sustainable business model. And let's talk this through real quick so you know what to look for, right? So let's say you buy a property for 30 grand and it rents out for $800 a month, right? That is an absolute home run for you. Great job. However, let's say, here in Ohio, your property management fee on average is 10%. So $800 a month rent, you're paying your property management company 10%. That's $80 per month. Realistically speaking, you know, that $80 per month, that's straight income to the property management side. They're going to have to pay taxes on that. So let's reduce that. Let's say that is $60 per month. Now, how many hours, how much time can that property management give you and spend on your property before they start losing money, right? So let's say they want to pay themselves $20 an hour or $30 an hour, just for even math. So if they want to pay themselves $30 an hour, you have 2 hours per month that they can spend on your property before they start losing money. That does not include all that would probably be eaten up in visiting the property enough times to get it rent ready, and then the lease fee might be 1 month's rent. So that's a little bit of a kicker. That might be $800 that they can, use to pad their books. But by and large, in order to be a sustainable business model as a property management company, it has to be a quantity game. So your one property might be important, but they also have to get up to several hundred properties in order to sustain that business model. However, once they get that many properties, it becomes a bandwidth issue. And now, if it's a bandwidth issue, they have to hire additional people. And if they hire additional people, that just messes up all of the numbers and they have to grow again, right? So they are constantly spread too thin and they're constantly losing money on this 10% retainer fee, right? So at that point, what are the options available to them? Well, they can charge you overrides on all the repairs and maintenance, but now that's not what you want, because now they're incentivized. If they want to have a profitable business, they have to go find things wrong with your property that they need to fix or repair, and then they have no incentive on finding you the best contractor or the cheapest dollar amount, because that's going to lower the amount of override they charge. Let's say they charge 10% above and beyond what the contractor does for orchestrating that. It's tough. That's tough. I had one property management company charge me $45 as a minimum service fee each time one of my tenants called in. Well, at the end of the day, that property was rented out for $1,000 per month. And there were months where I got as low as $120 deposited into my bank account because of all the nickel and dimed fees. So you likely will get nickel and dimed from your property management company. The out-of-state investors that I know, that airplane mechanic that I just mentioned, there are a few guys that are military that invest here locally. They are of the most successful out-of-state investors that I know, and the things that they do differently is they regularly, probably on a quarterly, if not more frequent basis, visit this area to go through all of their properties. One guy just purchased a secondary home for himself here. He lives, out on the West Coast. He purchased a secondary home so that he can come out here and regularly be here to overlook all of his properties and to fill the void so that he's not getting nickel and dime. There's another California investor. She spends 4 to 5 months of her year here in Dayton to monitor her portfolio so as not to get taken advantage of by these property management companies. So that is my biggest advice. So you have to form very solid relationships. You have to almost always be leery of your property manager, and you really need to form a phenomenal relationship with somebody that can keep eyes on your property, that is local, that is not the property management company. That way you can double check anything that you need to. And you really need to have somebody here local that's willing to be in your corner and do things a little bit out of the ordinary for you. If you don't have that, I think it's going to be a really tough road. And I'm not trying to be, pessimistic or say that it can't be done. It can, and people are doing it very successfully. But what I'm afraid of is a lot of people get lured in by the numbers, the returns, and they overlook how much work it's actually going to take, because you've got people on, Bigger Pockets or other real estate investing websites. You've got turnkey providers out there promising high returns to people, where on the back end, you're getting shoddy contractor work, you're getting a poor service, you're paying overly inflated prices, just so that these companies can, meet their numbers. So in order to not be taken advantage of, you really have to be on your game. That is my long diatribe about out-of-state investing. I know two different investors that live in California that are investing in Cleveland, and they are both currently suing their previous contractors because of the tens of thousands of dollars that have been stolen from them. So I say all of this. Yes, it can be done. I know people that are doing it successfully, but like I said, they are here a lot. And the people that are not here a lot are spending buku's cash on attorney fees to kind of fix the messes from a court perspective. So, hey, take that with a grain of salt. Be that as it may, that's my diatribe there. Are there banks that take on low purchase prices, such as in the $20,000 range? Yes. The second home that I purchased, I have these numbers absolutely memorized. I bought it for $28,000. I went to a bank. It's a local credit union. That's probably where you're going to have the most success. The people that know the market, that are in tune with it, a lot of the local regional banks don't have the minimums. The bigger banks, like the Wells Fargos, the Chases, they likely have like a $75,000 to $125,000 minimum. So you're right there. The local regional banks will likely work with you. I bought that house for $28,000. I put $7,000 down. That was the 25%. The loan amount was $21,000. The mortgage payment is $112.74 per month. And the property is rented out for $750. And after the pet fees, it's currently rented right around $795 a month. So it's a phenomenal property for me. And it has a bank loan at this point. I bought that. That was the second property I ever purchased. I bought it for, it's currently got a balance of, like, I don't know. There was a long time where I was accidentally making 2 payments a month on it because I personally was paying for it. And then I forgot to cancel that monthly payment when I transferred it over to the business. So the business, as a business expense. So the business should have been paying for it. So we made double payments on it for quite some time before I caught that. So I think it's only got like $15,000 or $16,000 left on it. Pretty sweet deal. Do you have an umbrella policy? Is it worthy? I don't know, man. That's up to you. Insurance is not like a cookie cutter thing. So insurance agents are safe from all this AI too. If your net worth is high enough, umbrellas are probably a good deal. If your net worth is not high enough, then I wouldn't recommend an umbrella at all. Generally, you can get a $1 million liability limit on a standalone property. And if you have $1 million liability limits on all of your insurance policies for your properties, then you likely don't need an umbrella until your net worth is higher than $1 million. And then once your net worth is higher than $1 million, you would probably want to have an umbrella of at least $2 million. And then, after that, I think the highest umbrella that I've seen personally is like a $5 million umbrella. After that, you need to start being creative. And that's when your insurance agent and your attorney need to kind of tag team and start separating, into different, your assets into different LLCs, different sort of trusts. And then those could each have like an umbrella of like 5 million. That way you've got separate buckets that still have their own individual veils that need to be pierced before it gets to your own assets. But from my experience, sure, it's great to think about these things, but a lot of people get too caught up into these things when they don't even have a couple nickels to rub together. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying in due time, this becomes important. Do you always negotiate price on every deal? Not really. If it's a good price, I'll probably just buy it. If it's priced appropriately, I don't argue at all. I'm a big fan of win-win relationships. So I'm a big fan of if they say that they want a certain amount and it's fair, then I don't hassle. If I'm a little bit leery about it, I'll tell them what I see and I'll offer something. Um, but other than that, yeah, I don't try to get $5,000 or $10,000 off just to get $5,000 or $10,000 off. I don't roll like that. That's not me. If you ever need someone to help you rack up earned points and miles using credit cards from your materials and labor costs, please let me know. It's a side hobby of mine. Uh, we've been working with Chase for a little bit now on like the credit card stuff, and it's wild, man. I mean, we don't deal too much in this. I think it's a really good idea. I mean, we just now recently realized that we spend so much money per month that there's a lot to be had there. Um, so I think we don't want to overly complicate anything though. So I don't know. I mean, right now our Chase card has like a 1.5% cash back. We're happy with that. Um, I don't know. I'm open to talking more about it if there's something that we don't know. But do you always buy a rental property with equity, or is it good enough for your rental property that has very good cash flow? That's a really good question. So, uh, the quick dirty rule of thumb is that when it comes to real estate investing, you make your money on the buy. So you generally want to buy it with equity. That makes any unforeseen hiccup more palatable. So there was this one time where I technically overpaid a contractor. I say overpaid because I paid him for work not completed, and that was about 30 grand. So in theory, I lost 30 grand. Well, I guess in theory is not the right way to say it. I did lose 30 grand. Fortunately, we got such good deals on the properties that he was working on that the equity was able to absorb it. So when we refinanced, we were made whole. We weren't able to get money. We weren't able to profit as much as we would have, which I guess is technically we lost money. But in the midst of it, that equity is what made that loss palatable. That let us live to fight another day. So it's always safest to buy real estate with equity into it. Cash flow is just one of the ways that you make money in real estate investing. So buying a property just for cash flow is likely not a good idea. And unless you have a substantial amount of income coming in from other sources, unless you have a really fat reserve, if you buy a property strictly for cash flow, then the chances of you being able to sustain that property off the cash flow alone is very unlikely. I created like a doomsday capex worksheet. I'm going to get the link for it right now, just so you can see it, because a lot of people, when I first started real estate investing, a lot of people used to really harp on the capital expenditures and the repairs and maintenance percentage. And they're like, oh, I'm good. I'm setting aside 10% per month for capital expenditures. Well, you know what? CapEx don't care, man. So your roof doesn't care about what percentage you're setting aside to pay for it in the future, right? Your roof is going to go out when it wants to. Your plumbing is going to go out when it wants to. And the chances of you being able to pay for those things out of the cash flow is not really doable. So let's say you cash flow, you know, $300 a month. That's a very healthy rental, but a roof is going to cost you 6 grand. So now you just set yourself back 20 months of not really collecting any cash flow from that property. So where does that 6 grand come from? Where are you prepared to do that? That's my biggest caution. And I created this CapEx worksheet that I just put in the comments when I was coming real hot and heavy off the Dave Ramsey train, and I wanted to be overly cautious. And I wanted to set aside so much money per month that anytime anything became an issue, I would be able to just pay for it out of the reserves that I've been setting aside. So I took into consideration every single aspect of a house. I looked up the average lifespan and the average cost. So I even included like the driveways in there. So all I'm saying is you can't do that out of the cash flow of the property. So, rental properties, especially in the family home market, it's one of those things where you really need to play from the law of averages or the law of large numbers. So it's almost like an insurance company. It would be absolutely impossible for an insurance company to collect enough premiums from one vehicle to insure that one vehicle, right? But if you insure, tens of thousands of vehicles, then now the law of averages, you're not going to have that many wrecks or that many liability claims per month when you think about the 10,000 automobiles that you actually write insurance for. So now 2 or 3 could be some real bad apples and get into some serious wrecks and have some serious liability issues. But the premiums collected from the other 9,997 cover those 3 problems. And single family homes are the same. The more properties you have, the more the cash flow is likely going to cover all of the monthly expenses, all of the repairs that are necessary on that portfolio. So right now, even when we repair roofs, that comes out of the cash flow of the business, not out of our pockets. I hope that makes sense. Come on. Come on. Anywhere. I don't have any preferences. I think all of Ohio, I think all of the Midwest, I think all of the Rust Belt is a phenomenal area to invest in. So I don't think any one area is better than the other. I would challenge all investors that are looking to invest in a particular area to figure out how to increase the value for that area. How can you make the community better via your real estate investing? If you're, looking for something that's already established and you just want one property, then I don't know enough about all the markets to tell you which one is likely going to be the best investment for you over the next 30 or 40 years. I take a more holistic approach, and I do my best to concentrate on one area of a region and figure out how I can play the biggest role in improving that area, not, what area am I going to get the best return out of? Over the long run, just what's important to me, that's not what I put any emphasis on. I need to buy your line of credit. I don't know what that means, man. But if you want to buy something for me, go for it. I like steak. I'm a huge fan of high quality steaks. There's a place called Jeff Ruby's that I love going to. One person was so kind from the YouTube channel to get me a Jeff Ruby's gift card. I am not asking you to do that. I'm just saying thank you to that fella for listening to my channel so intently that he knew that's exactly what I wanted. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you, once you eat a Jeff Ruby steak, it's life-changing. It makes all other steaks in life subpar, and it's sad. It's very sad. I mean, it's delicious. It's very delicious, but it's kind of like being a drug addict, I suppose. To eat a good steak, I can't go anywhere else other than Jeff Ruby's. After how many properties do you need to create an LLC? Totally up to you, man. This is a personal thing for everybody. So legal structure is hands down my least favorite thing to talk about on this channel because there's no right answer. I think, and like I kind of said earlier, if you were to put down an insurance agent and a attorney and an attorney into a room together to protect your assets, here's what's going to happen. The insurance agent is going to make sure that you have an appropriate level of coverage for each of your entities so that you can sustain a large lawsuit and it not exhaust those funds. So, in order to do it right, each entity needs its own insurance policy. An attorney is going to take your assets and separate them to where if you incur any lawsuit or any claim against you in any of those buckets, then it's not going to be it's not going to be a large hit on your overall asset base. So the most conservative of answers would be create one LLC per property. Now, from a realistic perspective, that is going to make all of your operating fees skyrocket because you're going to have separate bank accounts. You're going to have your bookkeeper keep it all separately. You're going to have to file a separate tax return, even if it's a disregarded entity, right? In order to do it the right way, the funds cannot be commingled from the others. So again, while this might be good to ponder about in your free time, a lot of people, again, I think the analogy that I like to say is, if you go to a really nice neighborhood, you might see a gated community. You might see, a few different security features you might not see elsewhere. And then if you go to like a really, low income neighborhood, you're going to see a whole bunch of private property signs, a whole bunch of no trespassing signs. And I kind of feel like it's just our human nature, like in those lower income, when you just think about all the times that you've seen those signs, have you ever thought to yourself, what in the world are those people trying to protect? Like there's nothing in there that I would ever want. I think it's our natural tendency to have this scarcity mindset and try to protect every little morsel that comes into our, our 3 foot world. And I'm not saying be negligent and, don't adequately cover yourself. I'm just saying people spend too much time trying to protect things that might not be there. And that's why it's my least favorite, is because I feel like I have this conversation over and over again. And it's not that serious. And then whenever it does get to a certain extent where you realize, okay, I've created something massive, and it's time that I really protect these things, then you are going to have to find a phenomenal attorney and insurance agent to sit down and look at your personal situation and figure out a very custom, unique to you plan, because everybody has different irons in the fire. There's no cookie cutter. There's no blanket level thing that I could say or do that is the answer. So I think you should do some independent research. I think you should look at this and take it seriously. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a custom, like a snowflake. Everybody's entity structures and asset management is like a snowflake. It's all going to be different. It's all going to be very unique. George Klein, I am so happy to see you on here, man. Man, that's awesome. Thank you for being on here. That's very exciting. Let's see here. There we go. How do you know if a property have equity and how much before you purchase it? Hey, PropStream, WB Blue. In the link below, you can get a 7-day free trial. Now, on the 8th day, they're going to get you for all $97. So make sure you test it thoroughly and quickly. Let's see here. Running comps. So figuring out what other properties of similar square footage of beds and bathrooms, similar condition, similar area, and just comparing like, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z to this property, at the end of the day, it's going to be worth this. I think that is probably the best way to find just like the after repair value. And then if you know that you have to put 10 grand into it and you're buying it for, 30 grand and it says it's going to be worth 70, then you know that it's got 30 grand worth of equity in it. So that's kind of how you know. It's all independent research, and it's all ultimately subjective, because there are also times when people say, okay, this property is going to be worth 80 grand when it's all said and done. And, an appraiser comes back and says, nope, this property is worth 50 grand. So actually, when we did our last refinance of 36 properties, there was one property in particular that came back, the appraisal came back at 40 grand. Now, that might seem reasonable to you, except for the fact that in my own head, judging by the comps, the area that it's in, and all of the other things that I've recently sold in the market, my personal expectation of that property was that it was worth 100 grand. And unfortunately, it was a take it or leave it type situation, and I couldn't dispute it. So there was a 60 grand difference on that, and there's nothing that you can really do when that situation happens. So As much research as you can do to be able to point at definitive things, you should do. That way you can make your case if ever necessary. But at the end of the day, you also have to recognize that there is a subjective element to it. So just because I say there's equity in my property, you could also have somebody that looks at the same facts that I do and comes up with their own narrative about how my property actually has no equity and I could be underwater. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. So you have to kind of constantly challenge yourself and make sure that you are being realistic and factual. So don't be one of these people that thinks what everything they own is like 2 or 3 times more valuable than it is. I'm a 1099 of this year and I have 20% down. I want to buy my first short-term rental, but no one will lend. Yeah, man, there's a painful period whenever you start a business that you have to wait 2 years. So you have to be 299 in that 1099 in that area of expertise or that industry for 2 years so that the banks can see that you are going to be successful in that industry. I had to wait it. Everybody I know has had to wait it. It's kind of like a rite of passage into entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, there's no easy way around it for lenders. You can get creative. You can look at seller financing. You can, borrow money from friends and family. A lot of ways around it, but that it all takes energy, a lot of effort, and it is all very difficult. So the easiest thing to do would be keep saving, really concentrate on whatever it is you're doing for 1099 work, really increase your income and really lower your expenses. So another difficult thing is since you're a 1099, you are likely getting very familiar with the fact that you can write off a lot of things and you can show a very small amount of income, even though realistically speaking, you're making a decent amount of money. So I would encourage you during those first 2 years, especially, to not take advantage of the tax code that you're able to, and instead show as much revenue as you can, because that's what banks really want to see, is a ton of income that will make them comfortable in lending you money. I also don't own. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, it's an easier line item. Can you please talk about how banks limit individuals or couples getting married, 10 plus mortgages, and how to circumvent that? Yeah, absolutely. And that one is pretty easy, actually. So the only reason that ever comes into play is when you're talking about Fannie Freddie loans. So if it is backed by the federal government limits 10 properties per person. So in theory, even if you're married, you can own 10 properties and your wife can own 10 properties. I would recommend not doing that with more than 9, and you should probably own your personal residence jointly. I mean, that's just a personal preference. You do run your house however you want to. But that's what I would suggest. And I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily max out that number either because, if you want a secondary home or anything. But at the end of the day, if you get 10 Fannie Freddie loans, then you can always refinance them into a commercial loan. And then you would have 0 Fannie Freddie loans. So the only way that it counts is if you are dealing directly with Fannie Freddie. As soon as you refinance into either a commercial loan or a what's called a portfolio loan, where the local credit unions or regional banks keep it on their books. They don't sell it to Fannie or Freddie. Then that doesn't count either. So let me think. Yeah, I actually have 0 Fannie or Freddie loans. So the loans that I do have that are amortized over 30 years has been held locally from like a portfolio loan from a local credit union. You could try a series LLC to cut down on some of the operating costs. Yeah, you could. I'm not so sure those exist in Ohio. But again, I don't know. Legal structure is not my main thing. But yeah, you could. I've heard of a lot of West Coast guys doing those and having some success with them. If a person put down 50% of the purchase price with a 500 range credit score, do you think they will find a lender? Probably not, because lenders are the ones that came up with that nutty credit score in the first place. And I mean, from my experience with lenders, it doesn't really matter what the dollar amount is. It really matters about like the credit history, the payment history, and all of that. So, I briefly messed up my credit score, and before that, I had no idea what went into a credit score. So, I would definitely recommend that you fix the credit score. That's a big deal. It's a really big deal. It's really important, especially if you want to be a real estate investor. Now, I have heard that most people strive to have a credit score of around of like 800 or better. I think that's like perfect, so to speak. But if you are a real estate investor, because the number of inquiries, because you're constantly adding new credit items, and the age of them is never going to be there. The kind of the benchmark for real estate investors goes from like 800 down to 700. So if you are over 700 as a real estate investor, you are creme de la creme. Now, only one person told me that, but he told me it was a lender's a lending secret, something that they just understand in the industry. Well, I think there are 21 people on this call, and I think we just made Ryan Ingram YouTube channel history. I think this is officially the longest live stream that we have ever done. So thank you for having 22 people on here. This is super cool. I'm having a great time, and we have also reached the bottom of the comment section. So if you have any questions, concerns, comments, let me know. I'm happy to help. Happy to help. 23 people now. Man, I feel like I won the lottery. 2 hours, 43 minutes in. Longest live stream ever, I think. Especially once we cross that 3-hour mark. That's going to be pretty bananas. Man. I just got really excited because I checked my email very quickly, and I saw a new listing on a street that I love. And judging by the numbers, I also own the property right across the street. I opened up the email thinking that it was going to be a single family home. It is actually a 4-unit. And here in the Dayton area, multifamilies, mainly speaking of 2 to 4 unit properties, the values have absolutely skyrocketed. The 4 units that I bought, I have one 4-unit that's 1 bed, 1 bath. We bought it for $100,000, recently remodeled and all. And now one is just listed. This one that I just got an alert for, $175,000. That is crazy. And it doesn't even look like it has been recently remodeled. It just says that the roof was replaced in 2017, which, it's a 4-unit. The roof is like $8,000. So now you're talking about 160 something, 168, 167. That's silly. And then the 2-bedroom, 1-bath units in Dayton, the 4-unit, 2-bed, 1-bath properties, we are starting to touch the $200,000 mark, which for the longest when I first moved here, they were $100,000 would get you one. We bought one in the middle of last year. Now it needed 3 units completely rehabbed, but we bought it for $75,000, and we put 30 into it. And at the time, we thought we had about $10,000 to $15,000 worth of equity, and now it would easily be worth, because everything is brand spanking new. It's easily worth around 200. Well, not easily worth. That's what they're currently being listed for. That's bananas. It's worth it. What's worth it, buddy? I think I missed something. I think I lost myself in my own conversations. What's worth it? What is worth it? Another one. right beside each other. $175,000 each. 4-bedroom. I mean, 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 4 units. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right. What questions do you have, these 23 people? Man, I'm so thankful for all of you. We're still inside of the stadium, the classroom that has the stadium seats. I feel like I am standing beside a podium. I am not one to stand behind the podium. I do have a laser pointer though in my imagination live stream classroom. Oh yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Except I think you guys are all tuckered out. We probably exhausted all the questions. So at this point, we just need to figure out something to talk about over the next 14 minutes so we can hit that 3-hour mark. Let's see here. Let me share something that I've recently learned about rental properties. The downside of Section 8 is that if they ask you to make repairs, they will stop paying you until you make those repairs, which is very fair, very reasonable, but also, especially when contractors are really busy and you can't necessarily get somebody out there quickly, you can really feel the pain there. But at the same time, once you fix them and once it's inspected, they will release all of those funds to you. So it's not a total loss. It's just a massive inconvenience. But I also get that it's like protecting the resident. Let's see. Is it possible to buy a property in one name and rehab in another name? I don't think so. I mean, you probably could, but I don't know why you. I don't know why you would. I mean, I guess you could have a property owning LLC, and then that the owner of that property could contract with another one of your LLCs that actually goes in and is like the general contractor for all the rehab work. But I don't know what you would accomplish doing that, because with most insurance policies cover products and services completed. So the owner of the entity would be just as covered from an insurance perspective as the entity that you own that was doing the rehab work. And then owning a property and an entity, I mean, you could change that whenever you want to, especially if it's free and clear. You can just file a quit claim deed and the property could be owned by whoever you really wanted it to. Mook B, what's the best way to go about buying a property with a partner? One has excellent credit and the other has a lot of liquid cash. So we formed a bunch of partnerships, 3, whenever we were first starting out, and capital was an issue for us. And we partnered with people because we wanted to take down a deal. So we went 50-50 on the capital front. But I would say from a long-term perspective, I wouldn't necessarily, I would be willing to partner with somebody like that on a flip. But if you're talking about buy and holds, I just think it overly complicates things. Like we've got one partnership, my brother and I are partners, which that's blood. And I kind of feel like that's very much so different. We're also extraordinarily close. And I know it's uncommon for how close my brother and I are. Totes BFFs and also brothers. And I hear that's pretty uncommon. So, and then we partner with like a husband and wife. So there's 4 people in one LLC that owns eight properties, and that gets excessive, especially in like the decision making part. It's really hard to make a decision. So once capital is no longer an issue, I don't necessarily think that it would be the best of avenues to partner with somebody. Maybe one person should be like completely passive, and the other person should be doing all the work. But then at some point, the person that's doing all the work is going to start feeling a little bit jilted because they are getting paid the same amount of money as the other person who's doing nothing. So to answer your question, Dave Ramsey has a saying, and he says the only ships that sink are partnerships. Yeah, flipping is a good one. Just do it as much as you can to, uh, get the appropriate amount of cash and then stop doing it. That's what I would recommend. What's the best way to go about buying a property with a partner? You two should probably form an LLC that's 50% owned by each of you, and do it there. And then, if for banking purposes, the person with the higher credit is the only one that needs to be on the loan, then I don't know. I would recommend reaching out to an attorney and figuring out how to structure that LLC or a limited partnership in a way that um, only one person has to sign for a loan. What is your recommendation for an out-of-state investor doing a 2-week rehab? Do you recommend one for the investor to stay and monitor the entire 2 weeks, or two, going there for the first few days to monitor and come back several days before completion? I would go with number one. And the reason I say that is, in my experience, contractors always start a job with a fiery passion. And then something happens and it fizzles out. So whenever I am trying to get a project completed very quickly, generally my main goal is to go by the property every day and make sure that someone is doing something there. And if nobody is there and I'm there, then I'm on the phone calling everybody that's supposed to be working on it, asking them, you know, what their ETA is, like what their estimated day of completion is, what they plan on getting done that day. And then I'll loop back around 2 hours, making sure that somebody showed up. And if not, I start getting a little heated and all that. But it's only because we've laid out phenomenal expectations on the front end. So if I were you, and if I was out of state and I had a 2-week whatever, then yeah, I would be like a hawk, because you obviously have your reasons as to why it shouldn't last any more than 2 weeks. So I would be there every single day, making sure that everybody that's supposed to be there is there. And if they aren't there, um, figuring out what it is that why they're not there. And another thing that you can do that would be super helpful is, if you're going to stay there and monitor them, then you should also let them know, because contractors accidentally waste a lot of time making like Home Depot runs and whatnot. So if you could be the person that goes back and forth to the like picking up items as needed or as learned they're needed, then that would make things go a lot faster, and the contractor wouldn't have to interrupt his workflow to go there. I thought it was a really good answer. We got 7 minutes left. No, I need them all. I recently recommended two contractors to two investor friends of mine, and subsequently that caused me to get my projects delayed. So I am currently a little bit sensitive on giving the contact information of my people out. I definitely believe in the abundant mindset. So there are definitely good contractors out there for you to find. Um, but I also have some stuff that I'd like to be finished. But if you're in the Dayton area and you have a project that needs to be done, yeah, I'm happy to help figure out what you need and try to figure out who I can recommend you to, because I definitely have some contacts that I'm not using at the moment, but they're also not infinite. How do you feel about buying real estate in areas outside the U.S.? I don't do it. I never will do it. I have no interest in doing that. Warren Buffett said the secret, the number one rule of making money is don't lose money. I don't know enough about any of those areas to not lose money. And you talk to some out of state investors here locally, they're in the same country. and they're getting straight up robbed. So I couldn't imagine investing in a different country. Now, I know one guy who invests or is about to invest in Brazil, but it's also because he regularly goes back there. So there's that. Do you have a list of materials from your contractors or yourself that you typically use for most of your rental properties? Nope. I've actually talked to my contractors about this. Now, we'll get in a groove with some of these contractors, and they will use the same materials over and over again. But I think if you are the owner of an apartment building, then using the same things over and over and over again makes sense, so that there's uniformity and that there's a discount in bulk. But since we're buying single family homes, sometimes we go into a property and the floor in the kitchen is good, or the carpet in the bedrooms is good, or the paint in the air in some areas is perfect. So if we were to try and do cookie cutter and the same materials over and over and over again, then inevitably we're either going to spend more money to cover up things that are already there to make it match. So all that money that we just saved by doing bulk is now spent in us working on things that we don't need to, or we're going to have a very mixed matched ugly property. So I don't really, I don't really, I don't really care enough about that to do the same thing over and over again. Plus, I really like to give contractors the latitude of doing whatever it is that they want to do on a property, on a job, to give them like pride of craftsmanship. Nope, nope. Like I said, the only preferences I have on these is for flooring. I prefer to use the vinyl planks, and for cabinets, I prefer not to use particle board. But that's a durability and longevity preference, not a aesthetic preference. Ooh, name one significant benefit of having rental properties instead of crowdfunding investments such as Fundrise. Easy. Uh, when you're investing in rental properties, you have the benefit of appreciation, principal pay down. So the leverage works. Leverage is a big factor on this. I can, uh, hold on. I'm getting all jumbled up. I'm gonna come back to that. So you've got the appreciation, you've got the principal pay down, the cash flow. That wouldn't be a benefit because technically the fund rise would be the cash flow. And then the tax benefits. Tax benefits of real estate investing are completely different than the tax benefits of doing something like Fundrise, especially when you start to consider the depreciation. The other avenues of that is you are able to negotiate in real estate investing, like I've mentioned a couple times on the call, like the amount of equity that we're able to immediately get into just by good negotiations, by taking advantage of opportunities, by helping people that need to get out from under a property very quickly. We might be able to buy a $75,000 house for $30,000. I cannot approach Fundrise, give them $30,000 and have $75,000 appear in my account. The depreciation is also a big deal. If you are a high income earner, then being able to depreciate the assets and whatnot on that is a big deal. Being able to actually claim the expenses on like your own personal taxes is huge. Something that Fundrise isn't able to do. So by and large, I think if you are looking to just place a bunch of money and get passive returns, sure, Fundrise might be good. But if you are looking to build lasting generational wealth, Fundrise is not your answer. Good question, man. Good question. Do you know any home buying grants? No, no, I don't. I'm sure they're out there, though. I'm sure they're out there. We did it. we passed the 3-hour mark and we're at 20 people. So what you guys got? It slowed down drastically. So what do you think? Let's do 2 more questions and then call it a day. There's no reason to break our record too hard, right? Let's see. I wonder how many. You guys can probably already see this, but I don't know. I wonder how many views this thing has already gotten. I guess people clicking on and clicking off. It doesn't show views, I guess, until afterwards. But hey, it does say that 20 people are watching right now. That's pretty cool. All right. First-time home buyer. Really? You've been on this call for months now, and you are only a first-time home buyer? That is very exciting. Good work. You are far ahead of the pack, sir. First-time home buyer. Should I buy a personal home first or rental property? Man, that's a good question. What's your current living situation? Are you renting? There's a couple different answers to this. If you are paying a decent amount a month in renting, then I think it would be very powerful to drastically reduce your monthly expenses by owning and only paying the mortgage. However, if you don't have large reserves to cover any of the things that might happen in your home, then I would recommend still renting. But if you're looking to invest, then you should have a decent amount of reserves. So I think I could just go around and around on this one. So I think if I were you, I would do one of two things. I would, your first time home should probably be some sort of house hack. So you should try and find like a 4-unit property, live in one of the units, rent out the others. That's like the best of both worlds. That's an investment property, and it's also taking care of your primary residency. $1,600 a month. Yeah, so you get a lot of cash that you can utilize. So I would definitely try and okay. So the first thing you should do is try and house hack and find like a 4-unit. If you can't do that, what my wife and I did is like I mentioned, we had 17 acres. We built a house. We sold it for like 215 grand when we moved. When we moved out to Ohio, we bought a $60,000 house. Our monthly payment went from $1,400 per month to $400 per month. It was like $465, I think, to be exact. So we immediately added $1,000 a month to our investable income. It was a 700 square foot house, very painful, very modest. I say painful because at one point we had 3 kids in there in a 2-bedroom, 700 square foot house. So it was tight. If we had anyone over to our house to visit us, we truly, like, someone either had to sit in the floor or stand. It crippled the functionality of our house, inviting additional people over. So I would definitely suggest that you live way below your means as much as possible so that you can invest as much as possible. So if you're not married, if you don't have many responsibilities, what I would suggest if you can't find a 4-unit that's reasonable is buying a single family home and then renting out, a room or two to some good friends of yours that you trust and know. So that's what I would say. And that would really allow you to invest quickly and efficiently. This is a good question. What is the biggest mistake you have made in real estate investing that you wish you could tell your younger self? I think early on, I passed on a lot of deals that seemed to be really scary. That now, after seeing the market appreciate so much, I left a lot on the table. So I will give myself a modest pat on the back. And that is that this wisdom thing has always been really important to me. So I did a really good job seeking out mentors and finding people that had the size portfolio that I was looking to build. And I befriended them, uh, you know, gained an audience with them, and then I had like an informal board of directors of these people that before I purchased a property, I ran it by them. I got their approval, and that allowed me, I think, to circumvent a lot of mistakes along the way. So I was very fortunate to have that. Um, and then, um, sorry, somebody's playing with my mailbox slot. I guess that's rent money. um, and that allowed me to circumvent a lot of mistakes and really, really a lot of pain points too. Like I mentioned earlier, I did lose 30 grand that one time on bad contractors. But fortunately, we had enough equity in that property to really cover the deal. So it didn't hurt as much as it could have. Um, I don't know. I think as far as big mistakes go, I passed on a lot of deals that I probably shouldn't have. There was one deal I was offered to buy a house that was way out of my league at the time, but they offered it for 100 grand, and it just recently sold for 300 grand. So there was a lot of equity there. So I think if you were to look at like the missed equity portions, that would be the thing. But at the same time, I have no idea if my younger self had access to capital the way that I do now to tackle those deals. So I think because that informal board of directors, surrounding myself with wiser people that are very experienced, was of great benefit uh, to that. Let's see here. 650 credit score, $40,000 cash saved, $60,000 steady income. Continue to rent $1,000 a month because of this current market, or try to find a good deal. Always try to find a good deal. I am never going to recommend that anybody sit on the sidelines, right? If you want, massive results, which I think that's why we're all here trying to learn about real estate, then it comes subsequent to massive action. And massive action is not sitting on the sidelines trying to time markets, right? You got to become the man in the arena, and you have to take your current circumstance and make the best of all possibilities, outcomes. Make best do with what you have. I guess this live stream has gone on a little bit too long. My words are getting all jumbled up. My thoughts are getting a little bit more fuzzy. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. Get out there, try to find a good deal. 40K is a massive amount of capital. Good on you for having that much and saving that much and living in a way that is conducive to that. Saving $40,000 on a $60,000 per year job is fantastic. So good work. Consider yourself to be in like the top 1% of savers, right? I don't know many people that almost have a full year's salary in their bank account. So that's awesome. Finding a good deal and house hacking. House hacking, I did it accidentally when I was 23. It was very helpful. I would recommend that everybody's doing it. One of my good friends, he is here. I did a video on it. It's called House Hacking Success. I would suggest that you take a look at that. But he ultimately got $70 back at the closing table. Now he used a VA loan to buy the 4-unit, but ultimately he got rid of his monthly living expense. And in addition, now that the other 3 units are rented out, he is making like $1,200 per month after all of his expenses, and he's living for free. So you can't beat that. Thank you, WB Blue. What would you do if you found out that the rental property you bought comes with a larger lot than you thought and it is zoned for another home? Would you build one? Nope, I sure wouldn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't make sense for us to build in this market yet. I'm really looking forward to the day that it does. But right now, if you can renovate an entire home that's existing for 40 grand, and if you can get it for 30 or less, I'm talking about one that needs like a full gut, then that is still more economic than spending, 100 to 120 to build a brand new home. So in this market, it doesn't make sense. Similar to what you're saying, I've got several properties that have massive lots that are very conducive to building an additional home. but it just doesn't make sense yet. I even actually accidentally own a few standalone lots, whether it came in packages or whether or not I just purchased it. Because sometimes you can buy lots for as little as like $600 here in Dayton. So I've definitely collected some convenient lots in between properties that I already own and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to the day that it makes sense to build, but that is not today in this market. We are in the seller's market now. Don't you think it's a little scary to buy investment properties? No, I do not. So I'll explain this very well. And I think this is a phenomenal question. This is one that I struggled with a lot. And I had multiple investors walk me through this on multiple occasions. So in order to really get a good grasp of this, and full disclosure, I have not yet been through a market downturn. We bought our first property in August of 17, and the market has only been increasing since that time. I have yet to experience anything similar to '08. I have yet to experience a massive downturn. However, I have had conversations ad nauseum with people that have lived through this and have made it out to the other side with their portfolios intact. And in a nutshell, the lessons that I've learned from these individuals, the first and most important is even if the cost of the homes or the values of the homes go down drastically, in 2008, the values tanked. However, the rents did not tank. The rents stayed the same. They did not go up, but they also did not go down. So if you are analyzing a property from a cash flow perspective, now, of course, you want to buy in the equity, so there's a buffer there. But if you are buying it from a cash flow perspective, if your rents are sufficient enough to cover all of your expenses associated with the property, then all you have to do is hold on, sustain, and you're going to be okay. All of the people that had loans called, these are not the loans that you are thinking of about the Fannie Freddie 30-year fixed. If you think about, your parents, the people that you know that had the Fannie Freddie loans, even back in '08, those loans were not called. Fixed commercial loans were not that are secured by the property. Those were not the ones that were called. The ones that were called were the short term, the lines of credits, and that just when those were called and people couldn't produce that is what caused kind of the escalation, the downward spiral of those individuals' portfolio, because they were overextended, they were over leveraged, they were utilizing lines of credit available to them on bases that they couldn't sell and repay that fast enough, right? So don't be out here thinking that your 30-year fixed mortgage is going to be called. So if your fixed mortgage isn't going to be called and your rents are going to stay the same, then what's it matter if all of a sudden your property value decreases by 80%? It means that you're going to have that property for a lot more years until the market recovers, but it doesn't mean that you aren't going to be able to continue to have that property and go off the cash flow. It also doesn't mean that you're not going to still be able to take advantage of the principal pay down and the depreciation of the asset, right? So that's important. Now, let's see here. What other points do I want to make on that? It's a great question. And I struggled with that for a long time when I was first getting into it, because, again, when I got into real estate investing, I was coming hot and heavy off the Dave Ramsey train, where debt is nasty and scary. And as long as you are very smart about the debt that you take on, so long as you don't overextend yourself on short-term lines of credit or short-term debt, I think you're going to be okay. And right now, as our current portfolio sits, even though we borrow like 100% of the purchase price and the rehab costs from friends and family, we've been able to buy properties at 50 to 60% of the ARV. So our total portfolio is leveraged maybe 60% at the moment. So that's very safe. Some of the guys that I know that have made it through that crash, the '08 ones, now they have portfolios that are only like 30% leveraged. And that just is their own little mental comfort zone. So to where they know that if another downturn happens, they're still going to be safe. But if you are investing from a cash flow perspective, which a lot of people in the Midwest are, and if you are getting these on long-term fixed mortgages, then you're likely going to be safe. Um, so buy smart and have your long-term glasses on. So over the next 30 years, of course, there are going to be times where the appraisals don't come in as high. It will be no different as someone looking to invest in the stock market. And that's why this whole like dollar cost averaging is, promoted all the time for investing in stocks, because when the stock market is up, all these advisors are going to tell you that you still need a dollar cost average and just never stop investing in it. And sure, it's going to fluctuate along the way, but by and large, you always need to be investing. And that's my answer is sure. You need to keep buying when the market is up, because nobody can perfectly call the market, right? You can't call the bottom and you can't call the top. You might be able to call close, and sure, we might be close to the top. But right now, all of the properties that we're purchasing, we're doing so with our 30-year goggles on, and we're doing so from a cash flow perspective, where we are able to pay for all of these. So that's what I say. And I think the bigger threat that you should think about is like, so if rents don't go down in these types of things, like when the values of homes do, if it doesn't, if rent and the values of the home exist separately, then you shouldn't necessarily be focused on how will the values of the home be negatively impacted, but rather what can negatively impact the rent. So the things that I'm horrified of are larger employers going out of business or leaving the area. So like right now, the bigger employers in the market are who you should kind of be focused to. Like fortunately here, one of the biggest employers is Wright Pat Air Force Base. So that's part of the government, pretty stable, so long as they can collect taxes, right? If something were to happen and the government were to shut down Wright Pat Air Force Base, that would be felt in a massive wave throughout the entire county. GM pulled out of Dayton back in like 2000 or so, and that was a massive wave felt throughout the entire county. So things like that pose a much larger threat to long-term rental property investors rather than the fluctuation of home values. Hope that's helpful. I'm doing a lot of research on weighing my options, because I know it's a big investment as a first-time home buying. Yeah, man, watch those videos about house hacking. I definitely think that's something that you need to consider. What market are you in again? Is it Texas or California? I know you're on the West Coast. Or are you in West Virginia? Okay, I don't remember. But yeah, I definitely think that house hacking is the way to go. All right, we are at the bottom of the comments section. So let me know if you have any questions. We have gone for 3 hours and 20 minutes. This is bananas. I can almost guarantee you that nobody is going to rewatch this. People are going to see that timestamp and they're going to be like, oof, I don't have the time. DC, man, I wasn't close at all. Yeah, DC is going to be tough to buy in and probably tough to house hack in too. So maybe suburbs, or maybe you can do a power play and just move altogether. That's what my wife and I did. One of the main reasons that we moved to Ohio was to take advantage of the lower cost of living. So, on this channel, I know that I've met a couple guys that have decided to move for that very reason. And it's not a permanent situation. If you want to get into real estate and you're in a market that's not conducive to that, I would really encourage you to move. We met on this channel, but he's now become a good friend. He lives out in California because of the whole pandemic, because remote working is now like a real thing. He's able to work fully remote, and he is moving to Florida, where he already has a few rental properties. So that he can save a lot of several thousands of dollars per month and put that towards his rentals. And him and his wife set a time limit. They're not doing this for any longer than 3 years, and then they'll move back. So looking at things like that, giving yourself a time period to go make a bunch of noise, collect a lot of assets, and then move on. I think that's a solid kind of way to think about, like doing a campaign to raise your net worth, to raise the amount of generational wealth, to increase your legacy, increase your passive income, and then go back to normal life the way that you want to live it. Another really good friend of mine at this point moved from Phoenix here to Ohio to take advantage of the lower cost. He's a first generation immigrant, very bound and determined, makes decent money, and is now looking to. He realized that his dollar could go a lot further here in Ohio than it could out in Phoenix. So I'll rewatch. You're awesome. I really appreciate it. All right. Well, I think that's my last diatribe of the day. I thank you. I'm happy to hear. I'm happy to see you say that after you ask this question. That makes me feel like I didn't go too far off the rails. But this, I mean, truly ad nauseum, I've had this conversation because I was so nervous about it too. So, Seamus, you're still on, man. You are a champion. Yeah, happy Easter to you as well. And I really appreciate you guys. Hey, every Friday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And hey, 7-day free trial to PropStream. Check it out. Thank you. Thank you. And George, I'm about to call you right now. I'm getting my phone ready. All righty, gentlemen. I will see you all next week. I appreciate it.